of the ERL Grand Elite EisenDesigns Sports Car Series. We've run at Watkins Glen and Road America. We've run an hour and a half in those two events. Today is the longest race of the schedule, the 2.4 hours of Daytona at the Daytona Road Course. Seth Cole alongside of Sam Dyer. And Sam, kind of interesting with the two different classes coming into this race. We've got some interesting storylines as far as the championship's concerned.
Yeah, I mean, this race, there's more points involved since it's a longer race. They're actually doubling up the points that you get during this. So some guys that you thought maybe didn't have a chance to win in the championship during this season actually have a solid chance of doing so if they win this race.
Looking as far as the Daytona prototypes and the Ford GT class, looks like it's going to be more of the championship battle in the GT class. But one thing that I've noticed here as well, we got some pretty interesting names, some new names, and some drivers that have only made maybe one start this season or making their debut here tonight up near the top of the board for the starting grid for the prototypes.
Yeah, our pole sitter in the 13 car, he's new up here. Also coming up in second place. I'm excited to just see these prototype cars. These guys, just watching them throughout practice, look like they like to stick on one another. These guys are running pretty similar lap times, so it's going to be good, clean racing throughout the whole entire race.
Yeah, we've got DJ Alessandrini. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a very long name. He's the pole sitter, and alongside of him, he ran back at Road America, made his first start. He's making his second start, and that is the Irishman Daytona. And they are the front row. The guy that we're going to be keeping an eye on that pretty much has the Daytona prototype class wrapped up is rolling off from fifth, that being Kyle Higher, as the green flag is out, and we're underway. 2 hours and 40 minutes. Get your popcorn, folks. It's going to be a long one.
You got a lot of cars side by side as the leader 13 machine just pulls away, but all the actions from second on back as everyone is right on top of one another.
They are. You got second place battle heating up there with Daytona, Robillard back there, who I believe finished second last time out. Yes, at Road America. Zachary Robinson making his first start on the season. And I think an interesting battle that we'll see all race long, provided he cannot have early issues, would be the 95 of Kyle Higher and the 15 of Chad Frankenfield. Because back at Watkins Glen and Road America, it was Frankenfield that near the end was turning lap times the same as Kyle Higher when he was out in front in those two events. If we drop back to the GT class, you've got here a battle for the lead there between the two guys that have taken checkered flags so far this season. Daniel Resch, he ended up winning the Watkins Glen event, and Max Lupfer winning back last time out at Road America.
Max Lupfer is actually going to be at first place in points for the GT cars. He's the man to watch out for. If he finishes up top in the top two, top three, I think he might be able to get the points to win the championship for the GTs.
The guy that he would have been battling with in a pretty good points battle had he shown up would have been Drew Eisenman, who has finished, I believe, back-to-back second-place finishes in the first two events of this season. But unfortunately, he is not in the field. So right now for Lupfer, he's just got to basically, as you mentioned, finish as far up towards the front here in the GT class as possible. And he wants to get back-to-back wins. He has not let the 14 get away.
I think the surprise this season has got to be the GT cars having the most vehicles out this season. And they've got a total of 13 GT cars out, which is the most we've seen in any of the three races.
It's kind of polar opposites from the first two races of the season. The race at Watkins Glen, we had 15 prototypes. Road America, we had 13. Whereas over in the GT class at Watkins Glen, we only had 10 GT cars, and at Road America, we had 9.
Going back to third place, we're going 3 wide entering turn number 1. Someone's got to back off.
It's going to be interesting there between Liam Sheen.
Still 3 wide. Oh, boy.
That was Kevin Zhu and Jared Rexing all in that mix, and Brian Zablensky in the 12 had a good view of all that.
That is insane to be going 3 wide into turn number 1. You thought for sure at least one of those cars would have backed off sooner, but they all stayed right on top of each other. Luckily, they all survived.
Them coming out of that corner right there, that's kind of been the trouble spot we've seen for a lot of the GT drivers in practice, coming off that turn, trying to get back to the throttle. Back end gets a little light and loops them around. So far, it looks like everybody's been able to make their way around at least at this point in time, keeping it straight. But as the day wears on, we're going to be probably hitting nighttime conditions, and so these drivers have to keep up with the changes of the racetrack. Take a look here at our track info so far. At the start of this race, you can see 77 degrees. The track temp is 92, but as the nighttime kicks in, that track temperature, I think, is going to be decreasing.
Right now, where it looks like go to the prototypes, there's going to be a pass for the lead, possibly, as our top two are side by side in turn one.
Sandrini trying to hold off Robillard. And then a little ways back from them, the pole sitter has kind of faded, or at the pole sitter, I'm sorry, the outside of the front row. Daytona has actually faded back to fourth, now under fire from Frankenfield there, as well as Zachary Robinson. The guy on the move, Kyle Hayers, started fifth. He's now up to third.
Hare doing a good job, but even the cars back behind him, they're just the top. Those three cars are right on top of one another, slipping and sliding. Hopefully they can stay on track.
Robinson took that left-hander a little wide, loses touch with Daytona and Frankenfield. Frankenfield trying to reel in the 99 for what would be fourth place. We drop back there to the GT cars. I think there might have been a little bit of an issue for Max Lupfer because he has dropped from second now back to fourth. And oh my goodness, both he and Zoo getting a little squirrely there going into turn one. But Liam Sheen has now worked his way up to second in that class.
Yeah, as we continue watching that, I'm going back to watch what happened to Max Lupfer. It just looks like he got through the bus stop not as clean as everyone else has, and he lost a ton of speed because of that, and everyone else was just able to pass him by, going faster than him.
Another trouble spot for these drivers all race long is that bus stop over on the NASCAR back straightaway, because if you cut that, you're more than likely going to get a black flag, have to come down pit road and serve it, and that's going to lose you a lot of time on track and a lot of positions.
And penalties also, you are going to get yielding penalties to where you have to slow up because that time that you cut, you have to slow up to lose some of the time that you were gained from cutting the course.
Big thing that we have talked about all season long is the differential between the speed of the prototypes and the GT cars. There's not a whole lot of space here. It's kind of a two-lane track, but even in some places it's almost a one-lane track. It's going to be about where these prototypes catch those GT cars, and that could play a big factor into who's going to be able to get positions and who's not.
13 cars fading back. Looked like he was trying to move up in a second, but is going to be losing that spot.
And Robillard got around him for the lead. Kyle Hayer's going to get around for second. As you mentioned, 13 car dropping back a little bit here. One thing I was kind of wondering with what we've seen, well, not only at Road America a couple of weeks ago, but at the Glen, drivers kind of conserving their tires. We've seen a lot of drivers go a long ways before coming to pit road. And I thought, probably with the nighttime conditions, be easier to conserve tires. What about here in the daytime conditions?
Daytime is pretty, with how much everyone's sliding, they could be running these tires down. But they will run down a lot quicker here in the daytime than in nighttime.
Look at this battle here. This is for the fourth position in the prototype class. Dacuna's going to hold off Frankenfield for now. There was actually a little bit of the super speedway type racing as we got a car off track there of the GT class. I believe that might have been the 61. Yes, it was. 61 off into the grass. That's our broadcast partner, Matthew Rodriguez, who's driving the 61 here tonight. And right now, I believe he is running about 11th or 12th of the GT cars. Back up to the battle for third place, though. Actually, we might have a battle for the lead because the 95 is reeling in the 08.
Gotta say, these prototype cars have been just staying right on top of one another. They're not really splitting up as much as the GT cars have been. With the GT cars, the 14 machine of Daniel Rash has been just pulling away from everyone else in the GT class. While with the prototypes, everyone is still so close.
Here you see all the leaders of the prototypes have caught some of these GT cars in the bus stop, and this could be really hairy. Oh, look at Daytona trying to make his way around Reasoner, and he's going to lose a spot because of it. Had to slow up for Reasoner, and Frankenfield pounced to take fourth.
A lot of these GT cars, it's best for them right now is just to hold their line and let the prototypes navigate around them. Don't try to move out of the way because the closing speed when you are on the Super Speedway track is insane. Even in the road course part, these prototypes are running so much faster, almost 20 seconds faster than what these GT cars are.
Now
Our
we've
leaders are getting stuck behind the GT cars right now, and they're struggling to find space.
They are. We just dropped back there to look at this battle between Liam Sheen and Kevin Zhu for what was second. And right in the middle of it, as you mentioned, was Jackson Robillard trying to split the middle to go between both of them.
Luckily, they were able to get through. There is a prototype car that got off the track, and I believe that was Chad Frankenfield that was struggling to find space with the GT cars and found himself into the grass. But luckily, he's back on track.
Still managed to hold on to the fourth position as well. And back behind him and Daytona, you got a battle brewing for what would be sixth of the prototypes. Tate Lytle in the 56 trying to hold off Zachary Robinson. I think they got a little wadded up when they were trying to make their way through the GT traffic.
With all the prototypes trying to get through the GT cars, you got the battle for second with Kevin Zune and Liam Sheen. These two are still side by side, just clogging up so much space. And they're still struggling to figure out who's going to get second with the prototypes splitting them while in the straightaways.
And Levi Zelensky trying to figure out, where do I go? Well, he was able to go up the middle. And fortunately, these two guys, Zhu and Sheen, decided to get back to single file because I don't think you necessarily want to take the chicane side by side.
No, you do not.
Hooper had kind of fallen back. I think he was back to around sixth of the GT class. He's now worked his way past Jared Rexing up to fourth, and he's not too far away from possibly making that a three-man fight for second. He's maybe only about 6-7 car lengths back from Liam Sheen and Kevin Zhu. But as you mentioned, Daniel Resch, he is pulling away. And if you think back to Daniel Resch at Watkins Glen, he dominated that race, and he was one of the last cars to pit of the GT class. He went a long way on tires, and I think probably went as far as he could on fuel. But that was an hour-and-a-half race. This race is 2 hours and 40 minutes. So how do you manipulate the strategy here based off of what you learned in two races that were much shorter than this?
I mean, this track is huge. I'm expecting these guys to pit at least 2, maybe 3 or 4 times just to get packed in with fuel and drive as long as they can. Tires are going to be an issue until we get to the nighttime. As the sun is starting to go down, sun might be setting in the next couple laps or so. Then in the nighttime, we've seen that these cars are running very quick, a lot faster than they are in the daytime, just due to the cooler weather and the cooler track.
I'll tell you what, early on here, we're seeing something that we haven't really seen a lot of at Watkins Glen and Road America, and that's a lot of jostling for the lead in the prototype class. Alessandrini, he was out in front to begin with, then Robillard got the lead. Alessandrini's back out in front again, but he has not been able to shake Kyle Hayer and Robillard back there battling for second place, so we're seeing more of a battle for the lead in this class. The other two races, it was kind of a runaway.
Yeah, and a lot of these passings is going on when they're on the Super Speedway track or entering some of these corners, but most of the passes, boy, Hayer going for a ride, but able to save it.
The front end of that car just wiggling as he went through the corner. Fortunately, there is a little bit of a runoff area that he was able to use, but he is going to lose second place to Robillard as a result. That's another thing, too, with these cars. You mentioned the fact that they were doing a lot of the passing on the super speedway section. So low to the ground, all that downforce, they can't help it if they're in the draft to be able to get a good run and then maybe try and outbrake someone into the road course section.
Yeah, we were seeing the draft being used during qualifying, and it's so strong, and that's why they're being able to pass and jostle around as much as they are.
Lytle just got around Finney and Daytona for the 5th position in the prototype class. Starting to reel in Chad Frankenfield. The two of them over in the Mega Drive 86 series. They're teammates. And so you wonder if the 56 can get to the 15, how much of a battle they'll put up against each other. Battle brewing for second. Liam Sheen looks in his rearview mirror and sees Max Lupfer trying to close in on him.
Yeah, I mean, been watching the GT drivers, and the top battle for second has been where all the action really is with the GTs. It's been these three cars of Liam Sheen, Max Lupfer, and Ken Zhu, who have been just constantly jostling back and forth from second, third, and fourth. They're still trying to figure out where they're really going to be placed, as Liam Sheen is in second at the moment.
Of drivers are out of the race. I'm not even certain they even started the race. The 16 out of the prototype class, Fabricio C. Garcia, and out of the GT, I believe that is Aaron Smith the second. Neither one of them, I believe, took the green. I think that the 503 also has not taken a lap, although I think he is on track.
No, the 503 has taken a lap. He just got into the wall, had to go in the pits to get some of that fixed up. That is why he's 3 laps down.
Battle for second, side by side. Lupfer up top, Sheen on the bottom. They're going to take this to the Super Speedway start-finish line, perhaps. We'll see which lane's actually better. It looks like for the moment, the side draft actually is coming into play a little bit. That outside line's getting a pretty good run.
Those two are battling up for second. Also, while they're staying side by side, the prototype cars are just getting onto the backstretch, which they could be catching up to these guys if they stay sideways pretty soon, if not at the end of this lap.
Lupfer actually broke a little earlier than Sheen did, as he was on that outside line of that left-hander. Gives up the second spot to Sheen, at least for the moment, but I have a feeling he'll be back. Move back up towards the front. You've only got about, it was 2/10. It's now thousandths between the 13 and the 08. The battle for the lead in the prototypes is back on again.
Just battling everywhere on track. That's what we love to see with these sports cars, is that there's just always a battle somewhere going on, and it's so hard for us to keep track of what's going on with just the one camera. But there's so much action going everywhere. As the prototypes are having a little, hopefully they're able to get by this GT car, which they are able to get by the 87.
And to your point, too, we only had 9 drivers for prototypes here today, but if you look at the 8 that are still running right now, 7 of the 8 are running within 7.5 seconds of each other. That's actually pretty close for an endurance race, so they're all still within striking distance if someone ahead of them makes a mistake.
Oh, totally, and with all the action with the GT cars, and if you catch one of the GT cars in the wrong spot, you could damage your car or go off track, just trying to avoid one another. So there's always a chance of an accident going on up front. You just got to keep your car clean. This is still a very long race. We're not even to 2 hours left. We're only at 20 minutes into this race, and it's so long.
Alessandrini just going around I believe that was the Andrew Rucker machine. Soft there through that one left-hander before getting to the Super Speedway section. Looked like Robillard's trying to use a little bit of the access area, a little bit of the runoff to maybe get some extra speed off the corners. It didn't work out for him, but now he's back on the charge again.
Looking at the GT cars, just going through. Not a lot of action anywhere at the moment, except for the battle for second still of Max Lupfer and Liam Sheen, as Max Lupfer is trying to stay in front of Liam Sheen.
Now you can see that the nighttime's starting to set in a little bit here, and you can see that the lights equipped on these machines being used a bit there. There was a little bit of a flashing going on by Robillard. Not sure what kind of a message he was trying to send there.
Usually you are flashing at cars to let them know, hey, I'm coming, get out of the way. Or, hey, you've been in front of me for too long, you gotta move. That's usually why you're flashing at cars.
Going to make a pass there. I think that was the 21 of Jared Rexing. Not too long ago, they made a move around the 86 of Ethan Reisner and the 63 of Kyle Merkel. Those two have actually been having a pretty spirited battle, which right now I believe would be for the 7th position of the GT class.
right now looking at cars that are in. It looks like Andrew Rucker is just disconnected from the server. It looked like he went into the pits. I'm gonna say maybe we're about to see our first couple of pit stops, but it looks like he has ended his race, as well as Gerald Campbell has disconnected and ended his race as well.
That leaves us, I believe, 8 of the prototype drivers still in the race, and I think we've got 11. I'd have to double check that. Yeah, I believe it's 11 of the GT drivers that are still in this race. As the leader's going to make his way around Liam Sheen, who's third in the GT class, Lupfer, who is second in the GT class, and then he's got about 16, 17 seconds before he gets up there to the 14 of Daniel Resch, the current leader. The battle's been pretty spirited for second place in that GT class, but at the same time, Daniel Resch is leaving them in the dust.
Yeah, Resch has just looked dominant since the green. He never looked back. He just always was gapping on everyone. He qualified with a second faster than second place, and he's just been so much quicker than everyone. Even in practice, he was almost a second faster than everyone else.
That's got to help him too, I would think, with him being able to get out of the way of the prototypes when they catch him, because he can afford to give up a little bit of time, move over, allow those guys by, and just continue on his way.
Oh, and it's a lot safer. I mean, he's nowhere close to anyone else, so he's not battling or being side by side to get into any of the GT cars' ways. Sure, there's a possible chance that you catch the prototypes catch him at the wrong time, but you're not in any way of the prototypes, which is good to be in.
Mentioned that Benson Tai had to make that unscheduled pit stop. We saw there for a brief moment the damage he had sustained to the right front of his Mustang as he was letting the Daytona prototype leader, Alessandrini, by. And there he is now making his way around the GT leader, Daniel Resch. Battle for second looks like it's starting to get a little bit closer. Kyle Hare right there.
Hare right there, and also
actually higher. I've been given these pronunciations from the last broadcast, and I'm still not saying them correctly. Kyle Hire. There we go.
It looks like the 08's just flashing to flash the moment in second place, just flashing the leader, saying, "Hey, right here."
Maybe doing a little bit of distraction, hoping that the leader looks back in his rearview mirror and messes up a corner.
Hoping for it, and right now, I mean, they're right on top of one another. Not close enough to make the pass, but close enough for third place to be right on his tail.
This is going to be 2 hours and 40 minutes. We've seen in the hour and a half events just, when we get towards the closing stages, how drivers even then can make mistakes, these races being so mentally draining. So with the fact that this is such a mental type of race, why not play a little bit of mind games?
Yeah, starting this early, though, you just want to make sure that you stay clean through the starting laps and try to stay with the leader. I think mind games should start around the halfway marker. We're nowhere close to there, so I mean, if you want to start early, that's up to you. As though it's just cruising at this point.
Two good battles right now going on in the prototypes. Robillard and Hire, battling for the second spot. Frankenfield and Tate Lytle have actually closed up their battle. Well, they had. I think the chicane actually split them up a little bit more, because it looked like Tate Lytle was reeling in the 15 for a moment.
Yeah, I think that's the same thing that happened with the GT cars in the battle for second. They just got through the rumble strips just not as well as the other person. So Liam Sheen actually's lost time to the 688 of Max Lufer.
We can find a battle on the track here. I think the best battle right now, at least the closest battle, is still for that second spot in the prototypes, which could very quickly become a three-man fight for the lead. Saw right there on the straightaway section, the speedway section, how Robillard and Hire actually were able to, in a two-car tandem, close up the gap between themselves and the 13.
I think this is the one thing that's so amazing about this track, is that it has the super speedway section that's helping the GT cars, the prototype cars, to stay so close. Previously the races, I was there for the Watkins Glen, and it seemed like all these cars really split up after a couple of laps, and it's good to see that the top three of these prototype cars are still so close. and battling so strong going into the nighttime.
Obviously, being so low to the ground and, the way that they're built, no way that these kind of cars can't have the draft really play to their benefit. What about the Mustangs, though? Do you think that there's any way, the way they're built, the way that their body is shaped, that the draft would come into play for them?
The way that they were racing earlier, you'd think that it was helping them, but it looks like, I mean, if you're not getting through the bus stop as clean as some other cars, you're losing too much speed to where the draft really isn't a factor. As you can see, everyone's spread out with the GT cars, so no one's really seen the advantage of the draft. But when they were close, it looked like there was side drafting that was helping with one another just to slow down the car next to you and get by them. But right now, I don't think it's really a factor.
A battle starting to maybe brew here. This would be for the 5th position in the prototype. Zachary Robinson just a little ways ahead by about maybe 4/10 over Finian Dacuna. So those two might start battling each other for a spot here in the top 5. There you see Dacuna's number 99 there. Dacuna is like an unofficial teammate to Kyle Heyer, so you got to wonder what the two-time prototype winner has been able to give Dacuna for advice, not only at Road America a couple of weeks ago, but heading here into the Daytona road course.
I was going through the GT cars trying to see if there was any action. I saw Jared Rexing having a ton of damage on his front of his car. Went back around lap 10. He hit off the rumble strips in the back. He went off the bus stop, exited it wrong, and just spun his car around, smashing his front end onto the outside wall. You hate to see the damage on his car now, but at least his car's still running. That is not the way you wanted this race to start out for Jared Rexing.
Rexing, I believe, making his first start. I don't believe he ran at either Watkins Glen or Road America. I don't think he's come to pit road either. He is still running 8th in the GT class, so probably just trying to hold out until the pit stop. As up
Obviously,
ahead of him, you got that battle still going on there. That was, I believe, the top 3. Yeah, somebody might have cut the bus stop a little bit because I saw some infield kicked up in the air.
I mean, Rexing probably thinks that he doesn't have that much of damage. He didn't hit it that hard, so the damage probably wasn't as bad as he thought it was, but it still looks pretty much... He might be still running as hard as he is right now because he might not have lost that much power in his car, so he's able to still run.
As you mentioned, some of these prototypes going to utilize the headlights to notify some of the GT drivers they're catching up, and you saw right there, Alessandrini was flashing. I believe that was both Kyle Merkel and Ethan Reisner on the front straightaway, letting them know that he was there. They very graciously moved over and allowed him around, but still, you can throw a blanket over this top 3. They have not separated from each other at all.
You got the top 3 battling at one another. You also have a battle for 5th starting to heat up between the 99 and the 50.
They're making their way around Jared Rexing's damaged machine. Yes, they are. Dacuna, apparently, either in the last 2 laps or so, had managed to get around Zachary Robinson for 5th place, but has not gotten away from him. And I'm looking back here at Kyle Heyer, dominance at Watkins Glen, dominance at Road America. He hasn't really gone up there and challenged Robillard or Alessandrini for 2nd or 1st. Remember, he's battling for a championship, so do you think for the moment he's just content to ride where he is?
Yeah, completely content to ride where he is. The 2 cars that are in front of him aren't really contenders for any championship right now, so just running 3rd in a clean lap is all right, as the 08 is going to let Heyer by due to the fact that he accidentally cut part of that section at the bus stop.
Heyer moves by into the 2nd position. Got a car coming to pit road, I believe. That's one of the GT cars.
Yeah, a lot of the GT cars are coming in now for pit stops. Even our leader, Daniel Resch, came in 2nd place with Max Lufer, and I believe all the GT cars are coming in this time.
And that's Liam Sheen back there, the blue car with the white stripes. Just ahead of him, I believe that is the 12 of Brian Zablensky. Been the 65 of Kevin Zhu.
Yeah, all
Daniel Resch down and away.
All the GT cars are coming in now. So that's lap 14. About 30 minutes in, that's when everyone started coming for the GT cars. Now it's time to wait to see when are the prototypes going to come in.
Yeah, so now these drivers, at least for the GT class, they've been able to figure out, what their window is. They can start strategizing how many pit stops they'll have to make before the conclusion of this timed race. Prototype cars still have to kind of figure out that.
So if my math's right, it should be about 5 or 4 pit stops of the GT cars I have to take. But if they get into an accident, they might have to come in for another time.
Interesting there. We were focused on the race leader, Alessandrini, and coming onto the NASCAR back straightaway, the car kind of swerved for a moment there. I'm not sure what that was all about. And then he was able to make it through the chicane, but that was kind of interesting. I don't know if just like a mental lapse looking away for a moment or what, but that actually, I think that mistake's going to actually bring Kyle Hayter a little bit closer to his back door.
Tate Lytle is disconnected. I'm going back to see what happened to him. Looks like his car got a little loose in the middle part of the course. Took it wide. I don't know what he had to come in for, but he took his car to the pits and disconnected.
Looks like he just, I don't see him hitting anything, but it looks like he just
might have to
pulled it off the track.
Might be taking a break from the race and come back later moment.
See right here, he's going to just pull it off into the runoff area, and that's it. Oh, he will finish at least, it looks like, in 8th of the Daytona prototypes. I mentioned too that over on the left side of the screen, you can see the ticker there. We mentioned it is 2 hours and 40-minute race. The ticker will actually update itself when it reaches zeros, so don't worry about that. And oh my goodness, this is crazy up here at the front. They're trying to get around the GT car of Ethan Riesener, and the prototypes are all nose to tail.
It looks like the leader tapped. I don't know if he tapped him or the GT car just hit a rumble strip that launched him up. But the GT car went up for a second. As the battle
Kyle Hayter to the outside. And what is Robillard going to do? Is he maybe going to make it 3 wide? He is! It's going to be Hayter who's going to give. That got interesting really quickly.
Yeah, I went back.
He's going to keep the lead, but that was a hairy situation for a moment there.
It was. I went back to that GT situation where they're trying to get by him, and they did not touch. The rumble strips launched the GT car up, which was lucky for the 13 machine.
Ballard, who had to give up second after cutting a little bit of the chicane, now takes second back from Kyle Hayter and begins to try and reel the 13 back in yet again. They are starting to close in on another GT car, which I believe is the 65 of Kevin Zhu.
Kevin Zhu's going to get out of the way. It was good that they caught the GT car there, where they could full throttle and just blast by these GT cars.
It's like you are correct. I think Tate Lytle is out now. He has not returned back. So that leaves us now only 7 of the Daytona prototypes still running, and I believe we have 11 of the GT cars still in this race, and still a long ways to go in this one.
And with the GT cars, there's a battle for second. Once again, the same 2 cars of Max Lufer and Liam Sheen battling it out, trying to see who's going to be in second, as Daniel Roush is still so far away from everyone else.
You can see there in that shot, at least for the moment, no prototypes anywhere in the vicinities. Oh, we got a spinner there. Oh, we got 2 spinners. That's Matthew Rodriguez on the left side of the screen. That was Liam Sheen that spun off to the right side.
Shane doing so well up front, but is not going to be able to hold on. Going to be staying in third place, but here comes the prototypes. This could get a little interesting here.
Back and look at the replay in a moment, but we want to make sure the prototypes get through here safely. It was hard to tell if Liam Sheen maybe spun in reaction to seeing the 61 spun around or not, and oh boy, Robillard's going to lose some time here having to go around the outside of Sheen. But both he and Kyle High are going to get around. We're going to go back here and see if we can see what happened first to the 61 and then to the 60. And Matthew Rodriguez had told us prior to the race that this area where he spun out was the toughest part of the racetrack for him, it seemed. Let's see if he just maybe, yeah, right there, back end gets light. He's going to go around, and let's see about the 60. What happens to him? Is it in reaction to the 61? No, it's just identical. Same exact area. His car gets light in the back and spins around.
Speaking of identical, the prototypes got up to a car at the same bus stop, same way. Everyone basically did the same reaction of the leader going low and everyone going around. We're side by side for the lead.
Ballard up top. Alessandrini down on the bottom. Kyle Higher decides not to make it 3 wide this time. And you can see right there that the 13 continues to put it right down towards the inside line, so that way nobody can get to him. They have to then take the outside line, and they lose some ground through the corner.
A update for Tate Lytle. It turns out that the reason that he dumped it off was to go to dinner. Makes sense, the late race, and some people need to go eat food, while others are going to continue racing.
Here at Daniel Resch continuing to dominate there in the GT class. The gap now between himself and second place Lupfer is 23 seconds. I have a feeling it's just going to continue to grow because he has been putting down incredible lap times. If you look between him and Lupfer, last time by, Daniel Resch ran a 2:02.6, I believe it was, and Lupfer ran a 2:03.4. So that's 8/10 on that lap alone that Daniel Resch picked up, and he's been laying down laps like that continually, and he's actually about to have the top 3 catching him here in what would be NASCAR Turn 3. Sandrini's going to go around the outside line, clear the 14, as will Robillard and Higher. Saw all the GT cars come together for their first round of pit stops. What do you think about these prototypes? They all going to come in together, or at least with these top 3, is there going to be a little game of cat and mouse of someone maybe trying to short pit the others, someone trying to stretch a little bit further than the others?
There's always a chance of someone trying to stretch it a little bit further than everyone else. Short pitting is always an option, especially with the way that Daytona is set and how long they've been out. They could short pit it. I think these guys might be trying to push it to see how far they can go, if they can get to the hour marker or even further than that, to try to just make this a 2-stop race. As the 503 spins around the leaders.
Vincent Ty there. Off course. The leaders got around him. A lot of damage there on the front of that machine. Car running of the GT class, which I believe is 11th place. Just trying to ride this thing out as he, I believe, this is at least the second time that he's been off course. Chad Frankenfield about to go around him. I've been a little surprised. You know, Frankenfield, we mentioned back at Watkins Glen, back at Road America, he looked like he had the speed to be up there and battling. I'm kind of surprised that he's lost touch with those top 3. He's 14 seconds back.
I think the main thing is that this top 3 have been just drafting with one another. They haven't really, except for the few times that they get caught up with the GT car, that's when they get side by side, but they've been just staying nose to tail this whole entire time, which is causing them to have more speed and run faster laps than everyone else around them.
It's actually a really terrific point. even if it's 2 cars nose to tail, they're going to produce a lot more speed, and 3 cars all nose to tail. Definitely on the straightaways, I think that's a great point. That's where they're gaining a lot of their time, is they're going to make their way around Jared Rexing's wounded Mustang. The drivers in the prototypes are currently working their 23rd lap. Actually, I believe they're working their 24th lap now. And we already know the window for... Oh, somebody else, I think, spun off of that corner there. Some smoke was lingering. Smoke there as well. I think somebody else has had an issue, and I don't know who it was.
It could be issues. It could be blinking.
Oh, it's the 503. That engine is gone. He is smoking all the way around the track right now. Benson Ty. And I think that Mustang may be toast.
Toast it is. One of the cars that the leaders just passed in the Tide machine. Ironically, oh boy! That's the 63 I was going to talk about, who just went around. I was just going to say he's been looking like one of the better cars that started in the back of the pack for the GTs and has slowly been working his way up through the pack. But he goes around and is going to be disconnecting from the race. What looked like was going to be a promising day goes around. The 503 spins again right in front of, I believe that's Max Lufer.
The hit that gave the engine damage to the 503, and here's a look at what happened to the 63 of Merkel. Oh yeah, he cut the bus stop. Right there, look at those, look at the rotors, the brake rotors, glowing red. Just shows you how much brake these drivers are using here tonight. Especially at the nighttime is where you can see it the best.
503 is still driving around, trying to get to pit road. Well, I'm just looking at the 503. His whole entire car is jacked up. He's driving sideways down down the straightaways.
I saw the hit that he took going into turn 1. Didn't look like it was that hard of an impact, but it must have been enough to maybe bust the radiator or something. That's when the smoke started pouring out. I'll be surprised if we can get that thing back out on track. That smoke looks pretty terminal. That's all this has been going on. The battle for the lead has kind of gone away.
It has.
Matter of fact,
I'm trying to go back to see what happened.
Yeah, what happened to the 95? Because he is way back now. He's almost 13 seconds back from the top 2. As a matter of fact, Frankenfield's starting to reel him in for 3rd place.
He was coming off of turn number 1 on this lap, and he just lost it coming off the corner, which made him lose all the time. Lucky he didn't hit the wall or anything, but he lost a lot of time.
It's not the first time we've seen him have a little bit of an issue with turn 1, and yeah, it almost looks pretty similar to what we just saw have happen to the 503. He had just gotten around Robillard for 2nd, and again, kind of what we saw before when he used the little bit of runoff there. I don't know if it's the front starts moving or if it's the back starts moving, but that car looked very unsteady going into the corner. And all that ground he lost, and now battle is starting to close up, potentially, for the 3rd position.
You know, the one thing we got to really think about is we're at the 45-minute marker, which was the halfway marker for all the other races that we've done so far. And like you said earlier in the race, that's around the time that we were starting to see a lot of mental mistakes. This is still a very long race. We haven't even hit the hour marker, and this is a 2 hour and 40-minute race. Mental mistakes could be starting to happen with a lot of these racers right now.
We talk about the wear and tear on the driver, but what about the wear and tear on the car, too? I mean, we saw when the 63 spun, how the brake rotors were glowing red. There's mechanical stress there as well, so some of these drivers might be overusing their brakes, and that might be causing them to maybe go into the corner a little faster than they expected, or not quite have the brakes that they had at the beginning of the race.
That is something we could be seeing. Looking at the GT cars at the moment, there is starting to be a battle for third as Liam Sheen is starting to get pulled in by the 12 machine.
Brian Zablensky been kind of quiet here today so far, but up there inside of the top 5, currently 4th, and as you mentioned, right there within striking distance of Liam Sheen for that 3rd position. Zablensky, I think he only ran 2 weeks ago at Road America, but he finished 3rd of the GT class there. So kind of a little bit of a quiet one there who could get up here at least to 3rd, maybe have something for 2nd. Don't know if he'll have something for the race win, because I think at this point in time, Daniel Risch has that pretty well locked up, but doing a pretty good job, though, solidly in that 4th spot.
Looking at the prototypes.
This battle there is for 4th.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Guys are close. Battle for 4th.
Frankenfield and Daytona.
Those two are close. And then also the battle for 1st. Those guys are close as well.
Is though, it almost seems like this has been, with the exception of the super speedway straightaways, the road course section is a 1-lane track, because Robillard's, whenever he's gotten up there close to the race leader, he's tried different things and none of them have been able to pan out. They've always lost him ground.
I mean, also I think it's just that the 13 machine is a lot quicker in the road courses, while the 08's really staying with them once you get through the bus stop and into the actual super speedway section of the race.
Oh, got a car off course there. It was off to the left. I think that was Matthew Rodriguez again, just moving out of the way of the leaders.
That it is. He's still in the grass. We'll see if he is going to be taking his car to the pits, which it looks like that is what he's doing.
See the 503 of Benson Ty still there making repairs on that machine, or maybe just sitting there spectating the rest of the race, because I'm not certain that car's going to get back out. Now, Kyle Hayer, he lost all of that ground to the top 2. He's 16 seconds back, but at the same time, he has been able to pull away from Chad Frankenfield. Frankenfield had a distance of only about 1.5 seconds between the two of them after the 95 spun. Now it's about 9 seconds separation between those two. So while Kyle Hayer did lose ground to the top 2, he at least has solidified himself for the moment in the 3rd position.
I think when we were talking about pit stops and short pitting or trying to push the car longer than someone else, I think Kyle Hayer might be in that spot where you might want a short pit due to the fact that you spun out your car. You know you have a fast car out there, but short pitting might be the option to try to gain some more time on the cars that are up front.
The battle... Well, I thought the battle for 4th was starting to close up again, but now it's opened up. Seems like for Daytona, he's been able to make it somewhat close through the road course section, but then when he gets to the back straightaway chicane is where he loses a lot of his ground to Frankenfield.
Yeah, it's space all over the track, and you hope that he will find. They are right on top of one another, side by side. I think Robillard might have a chance here for the lead, which he does.
Finally made a pass through the road course section too, which is kind of incredible. Seemed to be the weak point for him as opposed to Alessandrini. You know, with Robillard finally getting around the 13, if he's going to be able to pull away, because it seems like he's had a little bit better car on the straightaways, but no, I don't think he's going to get rid of the 13 anytime soon.
No, especially with the draft the way it's been. These cars just want to be with one another. The top 3, no one really could get by. And once you get the draft off, if you get a good run through the bus stop, you're able to get side by side. We'll see if 13 car is able to make the pass, or if he's going to be staying on the outside.
Looks like officially our broadcast partner, Matthew Rodriguez, is going to be finishing 10th in the GT class, and I believe he is heading up here to the broadcast booth. We'll get a word from him of just what these drivers are dealing with. They're out on track in just a moment.
As our leaders in the prototypes just, got right on top of GT car, but able to get by cleanly.
It's Ethan Riesener getting out of the way. Ooh, Robillard looked a little loose there on exit. 08. Let's take a look at the track conditions now, because it was 92 degrees at the start in daytime conditions, and there you see it's gone down 11 degrees, 81 degrees, which you would think would generate with more grip for these drivers, but then again, I don't know. These cars still look like they're slipping and sliding around in the road course sections.
Yeah, I mean, these tires are heating up. They've been heating up, like you were saying, mechanics in these cars. They're warm. Everything about this car is warm right now. Even with the sunset, that's just the weather that's gone down, but these cars are still very warm and it's very slick.
Be a big reason too why we've not really seen a whole lot of battling for the lead between Alessandrini and Robillard, with the fact of the tires wearing down, maybe not as much grip going into these braking zones as you would like between the two, but nothing really to push it. And there's the cat and mouse game. Alessandrini to pit road, leaves Robillard out there.
First time we're starting to see cars pitting here for the prototypes. We'll see. We're at the 52-minute marker, about to be 53 minutes on lap
30, I believe. Yeah,
lap
the
30.
completion of 29 onto 30. I believe the 13 was the only one up front to pit. Or no, I believe Kyle Hare. No, Kyle Hare stayed out. Field, I believe, stayed out.
Yeah, it looks like the 13 machine is the only prototype that has come in right now.
It'll be interesting to see here after the pit stop cycle around where the 13 and the 08 are in relation to each other. Which is the best strategy? The newer, fresher tires early, or staying out, keeping the track position on older tires? A thing that we noticed, I believe, at least at Watkins Glen, I'm trying to remember if we had the same thing back at Road America or not, was that the newer tires, they gained you something for a couple of laps, but after maybe 2 or 3 laps, they kind of evened out to the old tires.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the lap times that these guys are running right now compared to their qualifying and practice lap times. And for practice, when they were practicing at the night, these guys are about a second off from what they were running. But qualifying, they're only a couple of tenths off. But I think practice is a lot more better suited to where the cars are running. So they're about a second off of what good tires, clean tires are like. So we'll have to wait and see as our leader now is coming to the pits.
Billard's going to give up the top spot. He'll come to pit road at the conclusion of lap 30. See if Kyle Hare is going to come to pit road. I kind of wondered about the 95 with the way we saw him lock up his brakes with that spin he had off of turn 1, if maybe he might be one of the first to pit road, but now he is in from second. Looks like Frankenfield's coming to pit road. I believe Daytona is going to stay out, though, in the 99.
He is going to stay out, try to get a lap lead possibly. I want to check to see. Looks like he's the only one that's staying out at the moment. Levi Zelensky would be, if he goes in, he will be going in. So that 99 machine is the only car that is not pitted yet for the prototypes.
Daytona, I believe, was running in 5th when these pit stops began, and there you see Robillard coming off of pit road. That black car is the 13 of Alessandrini. They're right within the vicinity of each other, and it looks like Robillard's going to come out ahead of the 13, at least for the moment.
Well, I mean, just a lap difference on pitting. I don't know if it really was an advantage,
Only
maybe.
really switched spots because I think it was only about maybe 2-3 car length separation when they started the pit stops. It's the same thing. It's just now the 08's ahead of the 13.
Yeah, so these cars on older tires, 30 lap tires, they were running about a minute 42. So we'll have to see what the lap times they're running now.
To see with Daytona if he comes to pit road this time, which I believe he has. So Daytona from the lead on pit lane, or I believe, no, actually he has not come to pit road yet. Thought he had. The car he was battling was for 4th place with Frankenfield, so we'll have to see where the 99 and the 15 are in relation to each other. If Daytona maybe gains ground, and
He's
he
coming
is
in.
going to hit pit lane. So that's all our prototypes that have now hit pit road. I'll turn the lead back over to Robillard, who now has about a 0.6 of a second gap from himself back to Alessandrini.
And with the prototypes finally coming in for pits, we're coming to the hour marker, which around 30 minutes is when we saw the GT cars come in. So we should be seeing pit stops for the GTs soon, or seeing if they're going to be pushing their cars even further than an hour.
Looks like, based off of how far these drivers are able to go for the prototypes, they're looking at least one more pit stop to be able to make it the rest of the way.
Yeah, at least one more for the prototypes, but they pushed it out to close to an hour, so they should be all right for one more pit stop to the end, or if someone wants to short pit, 2 pit stops.
Alessandrini starting to close back in here on Robillard. Looking back at the 99, where did he cycle? He cycled into 5th place, so he did not gain a position on Frankenfield. However, he's a little bit closer to the 15 now. About 2 car length separation through the road course section. Actually, how about this? 4th, 5th, and 6th all within close proximity now. Zachary Robinson just behind these guys.
This is action that we've been waiting to see for the middle of the pack for these prototype cars, as all the battle has been up front for the lead. Now you got these 3 cars right on top of each other.
You got about 1.4 second separation between those 3 machines, and the battle for the lead is on. Getting the nice slipstream through the NASCAR 3 and 4 is Alessandrini. He's going to jump to the outside, maybe try and side draft a little here before they get to turn 1. They got to go up to the outside of a GT car. I think that might have been Richard Hines, but I'm not certain. And they're going to be double wide going down to turn 1. Is anyone going to lift?
Doesn't look like it, and we've been seeing this all race long, where they get side by side and then they finally back off, exiting turn number 1, and then they just battle it out through the road course.
There, Alessandrini looked like he kind of tried to diamond the corner. It didn't get him the spot, but it got him at least back to the bumper, the rear bumper of Robillard. They're now catching Liam Sheen, 3rd place in the GT class. They're going to get around him and carry this battle maybe back over into the NASCAR back straightaway. Run a little bit more of a defensive line, kind of widening the corners, driving it in deep, forcing Alessandrini to kind of drive it in deep to the corner and kind of ride it off.
As these guys are battling it out for the lead for the prototypes. Look through the GT cars, everyone is so spread out. There is no competition around anyone. So we're going to keep all the action right now on the prototypes.
You see Daniel Resch continuing to show the way. The gap between himself and second, 32 seconds. As he's currently just out for a Sunday drive, looking to pick up his 2nd win of the season. Taking the checkers back in the first race at Watkins Glen. If we look here in terms of our championship picture, that's pretty much cut and dry as well. Max Lupfer, currently 2nd of the GT cars. He's currently right where he needs to be in order to take the championship for his class. And Kyle Hayer running currently in 3rd place for his class. They're basically just out there doing what they got to do. Just get themselves a top 3 finish in the championship, and each respective class is theirs.
As the 13 machine takes the lead. Side by side again as they're trying to get by the 503.
Is that car back out on track?
I don't know how he's still running, but he's still trying to get as many points as he can due to the fact that 61 is off track, that they're no longer racing. So they're trying to get at least one more position.
Yeah, they're now up to 9th of the GT class. As you mentioned, they passed Matthew Rodriguez in the running order, and Matt Rod has actually made his way now up to our studio's booth. So, Matt, you called it early here, but it looked like a lot of struggles for you out there. What are the struggles these drivers are facing, not only in the daytime, but now heading into the nighttime conditions?
I mean, like you guys said earlier, it's definitely a big mental factor. All I did was 50 minutes, and I'm drenched in sweat, and my feet are achy, my hands are achy. So I can't even imagine what these guys in the prototypes are doing. I mean, we were pretty much just focused on getting out of the way of the prototypes, because as soon as they're within 5 seconds of you, I mean, just look at the 87 there. I mean, no time to react. I mean, you've got a whole gaggle of these just fly by you.
It's especially easy to see on the GT Mustangs just how much brake is being used, and the brake rotors glowing red and everything. I mean, is there a way at this type of a racetrack to conserve brakes?
Not really. I mean, at least I feel I was aggressively using the brake, but I mean, when you look at all these other guys, they'll throw it into the corner like on the back straightaway. There's 3 markers, and they'll run it all the way down to the 1 marker, and you'll see a little flash of a brake light, and they just dart off to the inside. I wasn't sure how they did that, but I mean, I could see aggressively using the brake, just trying to angle the car, because this thing is pretty much a brick with wheels. It's not very aerodynamic. It's not very friendly. You try to turn the wheel, and it'll fight you the entire way. So,
well, obviously, we know that you would have probably liked to have completed this race out. Well, maybe not. Who knows? But we're glad to have you up here in the booth with us for the remainder of this. But as far as Sam and myself, we've been running this for a little bit of a while here, so we're actually going to take a little bit of a break. You won't miss a thing. You'll still see this raging battle between Alexandrini and Robillard, but we're going to take a little bit of a race break and be right back.
Beautiful but very warm Sunday afternoon.
Campgrounds are full.
Happy race day, everybody. It's going to be a great afternoon for racing.
You can't ask for anything more special than what we have here tonight.
Drivers, start your engines!
Let the party begin.
Weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway. Picture perfect day, temperatures around 78 degrees, going for around 80 fans pouring into the Homestead Miami Speedway as everyone awaits a new series champion.
Carnival! Is it going to bring out the yellow? It is! Chad Backenfield, your winner at Auto Club. He's got him! Here comes the finish!
They're going to be side by side!
He got him! Oh my gosh!
How cool would it be for Ethan Burrell to be able to win the season finale, get his first win of the season, and get a championship to boot? Rutgers going to Homestead, a must-win situation. It comes true today.
championship weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway.
Picture perfect day, temperatures around 78 degrees, going for around 80 fans pouring into the Homestead Miami Speedway as everyone awaits a new series champion.
Car in the wall! Is it going to bring out the yellow? It is! Chad Blankenfield, your winner at Auto Club. He's got him! Here comes the finish!
They're gonna be side by side.
He got him! Oh my gosh!
How cool would it be for Ethan Burrell to be able to win the season finale, get his first win of the season, and get a championship to boot? Rutgers going to Homestead, a must-win situation. It comes true today.
Welcome, race fans, to championship weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway.
Picture perfect day, temperatures around 78 degrees, going for around 80 fans pouring into the Homestead Miami Speedway as everyone awaits a new series champion.
Car in the wall! Is it going to bring out the yellow? It is! Chad Blankenfield, your winner at Auto Club. He's got him! Here comes the finish!
They're gonna be side by side.
He got him! Oh my gosh!
How cool would it be for Ethan Burrell to be able to win the season finale, get his first win of the season, and get a championship to boot? Rutgers going to Homestead, a must-win situation. It comes true today. Welcome back to the season finale of the ERL Grand Elite EisenDesigns Sports Car Series. You have not missed a thing. Unbelievable battle continues on here between Jackson Robillard and DJ Alessandria. I can't. Wow, that's a great way to start. Alessandrini, as now it is Robillard out in front after Alessandrini kind of messed up in turn one there. But boy, these guys, they have not been letting off of each other. We had that great onboard shot inside the 13 car to see just exactly what he's trying to do to get around the 08. But Sam, when I was talking with Matt here during the commercial break, he brought up an interesting point of why the GT cars hit pit road as early as they did.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for the reason that they did that. But, I mean, you got that going on. Matt, do you want to explain more on that?
Absolutely. So when we started out the race, the GTs were really only filled with about 7.9 gallons. And that really only enabled us to run 13, 14 laps before we all had to dive in the pit road. Now all the cars are loaded with about 16 gallons. So that allows us to run about 30-ish laps, depending on how you're running here. So it's going to be probably another 10, 15 laps before you see all the GT cars start to...
Yeah, if that's the right number, then we might be seeing cars coming in within the next 20 laps or so. I mean, 20 minutes or so. So a lot of waiting.
Definitely one last thing I'll add
It's a little interesting.
I skipped tires on my first pit stop, and I mean, looking at all the numbers, I mean, my tires barely wore, so I'd be surprised to see anyone take tires on this second pit stop.
Well, I mean, there's the chance of taking tires now to where you don't have to take them later on in the race after this next pit stop. Or you could just go in. I mean, if you already took tires, might as well see how far you can push them. As I was just on board with Chad Frankenfield. That is Chad Frankenfield went through the bus stop. He was battling hard to keep 4th, and he's going to lose 4th, 5th, and go down to 6th place.
Had to get to the inside of, I think it was Zachary Robinson, and could not make it work. And as you mentioned, that drops him all the way back to 6th place. Take a look here. Boy, takes as quickly as he could, and I think he made the right choice there. Yeah, it lost him a lot of spots and everything, but I think if he had kept on the way he was going, that he probably would have run into the back of the 50, and the both of them probably would have been around.
A car that just ended his race. It's going to be Levi Zelensky. He's going to be coming out. He wrecked coming off of turn number 1. Just lost it, hit it into the tires, went to the pits, and his day is done.
So Zelensky will be finishing officially 7th of the prototype cars. And I know I'm not going to have you answer this right off because you might have to work the calculators a bit, but with what we've learned with the half tank that the GT cars were given, I mean, where do you think this puts us projected for the GT cars, provided they are able to then come to pit road in the next 20 minutes, as you said? Where does this put them as far as how many more pit stops they'd have to make it before the conclusion of this timed event?
If they can push it a little bit past to to an hour and 40, they just need one more pit stop. If they feel like they can push it past then, they can still pit at 1:30 or even sooner than that. It's up to the driver and how much they're able to save fuel while running with these GT cars. And with prototype vehicles, they're just one stop away from coming in. But again, the GT cars, it's up to them to see if they're able to save fuel after pitting or if they're not able to.
Oh, we got a spinner almost a spinner, right in front of the GT leader, Daniel Resch. I believe that might have been the 21 of Jared Rexing, who almost lost it right in front of him. No, it was not. It was the 65. Yeah, it was. It was Kevin Zhu, who almost lost it in front of him. 5th right now in the GT class.
After lapping Zhu, he's lapped down a lot of cars in the GT machine. Daniel Resch has, as he has just been looking dominant since the start of the race to now. No one's been able to touch him.
That's incredible at a track this big that a GT car has been able to lap all but 3 others in his class. It just is a testament to the lap times and the consistency that Daniel Resch has had. And if I remember correctly, Matt Rod brought up the point that on his first round of pit stops, he didn't take tires. If I remember back to the Watkins Glen race that Resch won, I don't think he took any tires on his pit stop.
I don't believe he did either. And here's the thing, he's going to have to pit for tires. There's no way you can run for 2 hours and 40 minutes without getting tires. So he's got to make the choice to put tires on this time by, for sure, as he's getting out of the way of the prototype leaders. And that battle is still raging on with those prototype cars. They just cannot get away from one another. It's been a battle since the start. And that I just want to bring up something with the prototype cars. These two have been battling since the start of the race. They've been battling for an hour and 14 minutes. Matt Rod, I just want to ask, how much, you've been just driving by yourself, but racing against someone for that long, how much mental draining is that?
It definitely weighs a toll on your mind. I was unfortunate enough to be around Daniel Resch as he was chasing me down, and after he passed me, to try to chase him back down. And for some people, that gets them in the zone where, hey, you can focus on one car and try to chase him down. But for some people, it's really a taxing thing where, hey, he's beating me here, here, and here. Let me try to run his line. And once you try to mimic his line, you get, and it kind of leads you into more accidents, more off tracks, and kind of puts you in trouble with the prototypes as they start to run up on you.
Interesting, too, because you go back to Watkins Glen and Road America, it was a runaway for the prototypes. There really was no battling for the lead. And to your point, Sam, these guys have been on each other every single lap since the drop of the green flag. When do you get a point where you say, enough's enough, I'm going to move you out of the way?
I mean, it's not safe to move a car out of the way, especially with these prototypes. They're not meant to be a bump like Rubbin's racing on top of one another. They're really meant to pass someone, be sleek. But the first car that hit pit road and now has gotten off of it's going to be Chad Frankenfield. I do not think that this could have been a planned stop, but he did spin out, go through the grass, so it could have been an unplanned stop due to the fact of him just getting into the grass.
Just had an exchange for the lead there. Jackson Robillard went around the outside of DJ Alessandrini. And I think what we're seeing right now is these guys are sizing each other up, maybe realizing they're going to be the ones to battle it out for the checkered flag at the end. They're probably expecting they're going to be in the same vicinity. They're trying to figure out, where are my strengths? Where are his weaknesses now, rather than find out too late near the end of this thing?
Oh yeah, like especially battling out now. Kyle Hayter never went into short pit. Well, he still has the chance to short pit. We'll see how much of a gain you can get due to the fact that Chad Frankenfield came in to the pits to see if he's able to gain on these guys. But Kyle Hayter, he's 13 seconds back. I don't think he's going to be catching up to these two up front.
Kyle Hayter actually just lost a ton of ground there just a moment ago. I don't know if he messed up a corner or what. I was looking at his time in relation to the top two as well.
He
was
did
closing
go
it
off
in.
the track.
Yeah, he was closing
spun
it down to 12 seconds, and now he has lost a ton of ground. So costly mistake for probably one of the fastest cars on the track for the prototypes at that point.
He got a little bit outside coming off this corner, hit the rumble strips, and spun it around, dumping himself into the grass. But he is now back on track, did not hit anything. He is still clean and ready to go.
Sandrini says, can I try and swing around the outside for the lead? Nope, not going to be able to do it. Instead, tries to cross over to the inside. No dice there either, as Robillard makes his car as wide as possible. Ooh, he might have left the door open down low. They're going to be side by side through one of the slicker parts of the course. They both make it through, though, still side by side.
They're still going into this corner. They're going to be side by side, seeing if they're going to be hitting. It looks like they're going to be staying clean, giving enough room to one another. But that was a close one. That road got real narrow real fast.
No, we're talking about Kyle Hayter back there making a mistake. If these two guys get together, we could be saying Kyle Hayter's going by for the race lead. The way that they're racing each other door to door when they get side by side with each other.
Especially with the draft that these two have, Kyle Hayter needs a mistake from these two to even have a chance to catch up to him, especially with his spin out that cost him so much time.
Now in the fourth position, actually maybe a battle for fourth starting to close up there between Zachary Robinson and Finian Daytona. They've only got about maybe 1.2 seconds separating them, and we know Dacuna's had a pretty good car on the long run. Remember as well, he was the last car to hit pit road of the prototypes. Now we know that Frankenfield's already hit pit road, but Daytona now up in the fifth position. We'll see if he decides to come to pit road when all the other prototypes do, or is he going to stay out that extra lap yet again?
He probably will try to stick out for an extra lap again. It did gain him a little bit of time, so he saw that there was a benefit to staying out due to the fact that you're really not losing that much time compared to everyone else at the moment, even with fresher tires.
Now, aside from the battle for the lead, this is the best battle on track, but I mean, up front, this is a rarity for us to say this entire season that the best battle on track is for the lead.
I mean, it is kind of weird. I mean, there was a battle for three people battling up for fourth place, but since Chad Frankenfield spun out, it did open up a chance for those cars to spread out. I feel like once you lose the draft, you're really not sticking with the car in front of you unless you're just running cleaner and able to gain on him that way. But the draft is really helping these front two cars just stay right on top of one another.
These guys all came to pit road somewhere within the vicinity of 29 to 31 laps. They are about to complete what would be the 15th lap for the 13, the 14th lap for the 08. So they're probably somewhere between halfway of making their next pit stop, which more than likely will be their only pit stop for the remainder of the evening. We saw when those pit stops began that little bit of cat and mouse game when Alessandrini dove to pit road and left the 08 out there, but it was the 08 coming to pit road one lap later that emerged as the leaders. So is that in the back of the head of EisenDesigns now, maybe, that I might not want to come to pit road a little bit sooner than the 08 car?
I think you really got to stick with the strategy that you probably wrote up when this race started. Just stick with it. I mean, you guys are probably going to be right on top of one another no matter where you pit, unless there's like, just based on how quick everyone's been running and the lap time's really not changing, you might as well pit when you feel like you need to pit based on your strategy originally and not just changing it up in mid-race.
Is about to catch some more of the GT cars. Ethan Riesener going to yield driver's right. I believe the next car they catch is second place. Yep, that's Max Lufer, second in the GT class. And he's going to try to get out of the way. Moves off to the left side on that right-hander. Didn't allow Robillard to close up any more than he did, because it looked like EisenDesigns had to check up just the least little bit.
I was talking about the battle for fourth and how it was a 3-car battle. Now it's a 2-car battle, as we got with the 99 and the 50 finally closing it up. There was about a 1 to 2 second difference, and now they have closed it to being right on top of one another.
If we go back as well to the mistake that Kyle Hayer made, well, he still is putting down really good lap times. He was about 25 seconds back after his mistake. He's closed it down to 20 seconds between him second place. So he's slowly chipping back away, but no doubt that that little bit of a mistake cost him greatly, and now he's having to play catch up again. And that's the tough thing about these endurance races. There are no cautions to allow you to bunch back up. You make a mistake early on, you have to really use the entire race trying to rebound back, and this is not NASCAR, so you can actually, I think, put your car down below the double yellow line, which is what Robillard was trying to do.
Yeah, it's risky to go down there, though. There's really, the grip down there is not the same as it is staying on the course, as these guys are still battling back and forth. This is so much fun to watch, and I'm just looking around. The next closest battle is for fourth in the prototypes.
The GT car there, they have to get around. Looked like that might have been Kevin Zhu. And I believe it was the exact same corner the lap before that they encountered Max Lupfer. So these two leaders have not had the best of luck in terms of being in a good corner of catching the GT machines.
Just looking at some of the cars in the GT, in the back-to-back for the GT cars. Ethan Riesener having a pretty solid day. Started overall in the cars 21st. Has moved up a couple positions since then, being the biggest mover in the GT machines. And then also Richard Hines also being the second biggest mover.
Another driver as well that doing a good job out there after early struggles. Jared Rexing, his first start of the season, right now 6th of the GT class. You can still see he has that pretty significant damage on the front of his Mustang, but trying to go out there and complete all the laps that he is able to.
Yeah, looking through the GT cars, it seems like all the cars from about 5th or 6th on back all have a little bit of damage somewhere on their car. Just saw one of the cars spin around. Which one is that? It's the 99 machine that has just spun it around in front of Ethan Riesener.
That is the, well, at that time was, and still I think at the moment, is the 5th place car of Finian Dacuna. And it looks like he encountered Riesener heading into that back straightaway chicane.
Well, with that incident happening, thought maybe Chad Frankenfield was closer, but he really isn't closer with his pit stop. But that spin out with other prototypes them pitting, and due to the fact that Frankenfield's already pitted, that could have issues of giving Frankenfield 5th once all of those pit stops come down for the prototypes.
Frankenfield is closing quickly on the 99, who has gotten it refired and driven away from the incident there. I kind of think, though, that spin might take away staying out that extra lap strategy from Daytona. He might be actually on pit road a little bit sooner than he had originally expected.
Matt Rod, are you still here in the booth?
Yeah.
So you said that when you started the race, the GT cars were at what? How much fuel did you guys have?
I believe it was 7.8 gallons. I could be incorrect.
All right, and then you guys, when you filled up, you were around 16 to 18 range.
About 16.
About 16. Well, that just means that we're about 10 laps or less from the GT cars pitting, if our math is correct from how much fuel is being used by the GT cars. So we're gonna have to keep our eye on the GT cars coming up and pitting soon. Who's gonna be short pitting and who is not?
And if the Daytona prototypes didn't have the same thing, if they were full of fuel, then we would be closing in somewhere within 10 to 12 laps before they make their pit stops.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the prototypes are going to be pushing it to about the hour 40 marker to about 2 hours. That's when they're going to be seeing pit stops for them. Don't know if they're going to be pitting together or just trying to push the car as far as it can go.
I think maybe as well. I mean, I know the tires play a factor, but when you consider, the stock cars when they race here at Daytona, the car that's behind another car is able to utilize the draft to be able to save fuel. Do you think that that's a possibility, that right now that the 08 might be saving a little bit of fuel riding in the draft of Alessandrina?
Yeah, I mean, the 08, it's been falling behind, and then also the 13 was falling behind for the first part of this, after this first pit stop. So I feel like they both have had the same amount of time to be around the car and be behind them, saving fuel. So I don't even know if really staying behind them for this long is a viable strategy of saving fuel, because it's just how equal it's been.
You saw right there, Alessandrini took the corner a little wide, and Robillard tried to cut it in, and almost, it looked like that car almost for a brief moment stepped out on him. He jerked the wheel back to the right quickly, correcting it back. So we're starting to see these drivers are now having the tires wear down a little bit, having a little bit more difficulty with grip, especially on corner exit. I'm certain as the nighttime continues to settle in, we'll continue to get cooler. Let's see what the track temp is now. Down to 78, so we are now below 80 degrees. The outside temp 72, and the track's only 6 degrees warmer than that. And these guys have been out there now for pushing about an hour and a half, so it's amazing that the number of laps that they've run, that the track has cooled down as significantly as it has.
Yeah, the settings for this race has the weather on ×8. So that's why we were able to go from mid-sun, basically the middle of the day, to where we are now, which is at the middle of the night. Sunset should be coming up in the next 5 to 10 laps. So we're going to be starting to see the sun pretty soon.
Drop back just a little bit. I think that a possible battle that might be closing in, although it still is 5 seconds in the works, is for the 5th position in the GT class. The 65 of Kevin Zhu is trying to hold off Jared Rexing, and I would have the feeling that if Rexing can get up there and finish 5th in a class with a whole busted front end, that, I think, for him and his first start in this league would certainly be a victory for him.
That definitely would be a victory. And you want to continuously see that you're able to just run this race out, see if anyone else makes a mistake, especially with what's been going around.
Talk about running the race out. The 503 has still continued on. He's right now, I believe, 9th of the GT class, but that car is still out there on track. He has had multiple issues here this evening. The car was smoking for a long time as he was trying to limp it back around to pit road. Somehow they got that car repairable to get back out there. I mean, I think if there was like a soldiering on award, we'd have to give it to the 503 right now.
Oh, definitely for the 503. I was just looking at lap times compared to our leader right now of the GTs, 2 of Daniel Rash, 2 of 503. It's about 8 seconds, 8 or 10 seconds. It differs on how the 503 runs, but that time around, he's only about 8 seconds off.
I think we might have had one of our race leaders make a little bit of a mistake, and that being Jackson Robillard, because he's lost a little bit of touch with the race leader, Alessandrini. I'm not certain if he might have messed up a corner or gotten held up by traffic. He's now reeled the 13 back in, but there was a pretty good gap there coming off of NASCAR Turn 3 between the top two.
Yeah, catching up to the GT cars, it really did make a little bit of help there, keeping the 08 on track.
Almost just ran one of the GT cars off the road there. I think that was, it was Kevin Zhu.
And the leaders are catching up. So who else? The 503 taking it wide, giving plenty of space for these prototype cars.
Looper right there, second place of the GT class. Right now, chasing a championship, as he was really the only one of the drivers that were mathematically eligible for the championship that showed up for this race. The only other one that I can really see, well, two maybe, that had a shot with it being double points were Richard Hines and Ethan Reasoner. They both came in 15 points back behind what was then points leader Drew Eisenman, 10 points back behind Lupfer, but they're both running behind the 688. Currently, Reasoner in 7th of the GT class and Hines in 8th.
As our leaders for the for the prototypes, once again, side by side in turn 1. And falling behind is going to be the 08.
He, back just when we came back from our commercial break, had been able to make the outside line in that corner work. That time was not able to. Now he'll duck to the inside in the right-hander. And will he clear him? No, he will not. Oh, we've seen this before.
Pushing it through, trying to keep the lead. This is the 08 machine. The 08 is trying to get by him. But he might be, it's so hard with these cars. They're so stuck on the ground, and these two have been right on top of each other, looking so quick, and just not able to get any distance between one another.
Of course, was the 21 of Jared Rexing we just saw there, the Ford GT class. Believe he did not lose any positions. He is still running 6th in the Ford GT Mustangs. There, I don't know if he was moving out of the way or if he had an incident or what, but this battle continues to heat up for these guys, and they are about 8 to 10 laps away from their pit stops, and I think we must be getting pretty close to the GT cars having to make their pit stops.
Yeah, if these cars, they might time it to where they're both coming in around the 1:40 marker, the 1 hour and 40 minute marker, so they know for sure they do not need to pit again. Both cars know they can last at least an hour, but trying to maximize those tires and the fuel for this upcoming pit stop.
That is, I believe, Richard Hines out of the, I think that was turn 2.
That it is.
Keeps it going, though.
Just spins in the grass, so he's able to continue racing. But again, mental fatigue is something that is really serious here. We just passed what would have been the finish of our past 2 races. This is the extra time that is on this final race that is coming on right now.
Extra hour and 10 minutes past what they would have run at Watkins Glen and at Road America. And it's hard to believe that for that hour and a half, these two have been constantly at each other's throats, battling for the race lead. And I have a feeling it's just going to get even more crazy here in this final hour and 10 minutes.
It's crazy seeing these two together, but I mean, just think of what it would have been like with the 95 of Kyle Hines right on with these three. I mean, all three of them were right on top of one another for so long, and then that accident happened to where he spun out of the 98, which then made it just a 2-horse race at this point.
Kyle Heyer currently is about 22 seconds back from the top two. I think maybe some of the GT traffic has played a factor into that, because he actually was about 20 seconds back not too long ago. And this boy, they're using the GT cars as picks and everything here. It's going to be Robillard again, trying to go around the outside. Now tries to cut it back to the inside, but doesn't look like Alessandrini bit. I think the 08's trying to fake the 13 to run turn 1 wide. And that time around, DJ said, nope, I'm going to run the line I want to run. You run the line you want to run.
So looking at the laps that these cars have ran, the prototypes are the leaders right now, are at 55 laps ran so far. They're on their 56. They all pitted on lap 30 to 31. So that means we're coming up to just a couple laps before they start to come in for pits, which will put them totally inside the marker of just this will be their last pit stop, and they'll make it to the end of the race.
As of right now, I'm not too certain that there's really anything that can bring Kyle Heyer, Zachary Robinson, Finian D'Acuna back into the battle for this win, with the exception of the top two maybe making contact and spinning. Right now, those two have been able to gap themselves pretty well back to third place on back. Looks like it's going to be a 2-horse race, but it's interesting in the fact that neither of these guys really have anything to lose. Neither one of them are battling for the championship. Neither one of them have won this season. So I think that we're going to see a lot more aggressiveness out of these guys in the closing stages if they are both in the same vicinity with each other than we probably would, let's say, if Kyle Heyer was up there, knowing that he has to keep that thing in one piece in order to claim the championship.
Completely.
Oh! Frankenfield trying to get around Benson Ty, and I don't know if the 503 didn't see him or what, but he almost got wrecked off the nose of the 15.
I mean, mental fatigue. Those little moments where you don't realize what's going on, who's around you. You just got to continuously keep your mental state at a high rate, especially with how fast these prototypes are going to close on you. The GTs need to be aware at all times.
And it's incredible, too, that people don't realize that even at a road course, you get into a rhythm of how you take these particular corners. You run them often enough, and as long as an event as we've had so far, you kind of go into a little bit of a trance, and you don't really pay attention to the things you should, like your rear view mirror or something like that. And I think that could have been something that was happening with Benson Ty. He's right now kind of just concentrating on hitting his marks, and then he remembers, oh yeah, I got faster cars behind me. I should get out of the way for him.
Oh yeah, and especially with the way that Matt was telling us how you had to be aware within like 5 seconds of when the car's coming. And if you're not aware by that time, you never know how quick these cars are just going to blast by you. And you got to be sure that you're holding your line and you're not losing it by spinning out or just wandering up your spot in your line that you're in.
Another thing that we've noticed with the endurance race as well, we'll get to that point in a minute, because we actually did have our GT race leader on pit road. He's now leaving. Daniel Resch was just on pit lane. I believe that Kevin Zhu is also on pit road in the 65. So the GT cars are making their pit stops now.
Ethan Reisner is going to not go in this time by, I believe the next car that's in has a chance to come in is going to be Liam Sheen, who's not going to be coming in either.
Max Looper stayed out, and he is ahead right now of Daniel Resch. So I think his strategy here is he knows he's probably going to finish somewhere in second or third. He's not going to be able to beat the 14. He's going to stay out, get that bonus point for a lap led. Zachary Robinson there in the 4th position. Right now running about 18 seconds behind 3rd place and about 18 seconds ahead of 5th place, so he's in a pretty safe situation right now. A good run for him, too, because I'm pretty certain this is his first start of the season. Yes, it is. He did not run at either Watkins Glen or Road America, so very good performance here for his machine. And there is Daytona. Where did he finish last week? He was 6th of the prototypes. And right now he is running in 5th here at Daytona.
And coming into pit road is going to be Max Lufer. And I was looking at the lap times between Lufer and Resch, and they are drastic. It is crazy to look at how fast Daniel Resch has been driving his car. The fastest that we've been seeing, I saw Lufer run, was a 2:03.3, 2:03.1 as fast as I can see. But that was the fastest that he's ran in the last 10 laps. But if you look at Resch, he's been running 2:02s consistently since he's been out there on the track. So it's interesting to see how these cars are going to be running and where he lands.
I'm going to place a scenario to you since you've been working the calculator on these guys as far as their fuel and everything. Now the GT drivers have to pit at least one more time, correct?
No, they do not. They're actually good to the go.
Oh, they don't?
Yeah, all classes. If they
Okay.
pit right now, everyone is good to the go.
Okay, all right, then that eliminates what I was going to say, because I was going to say, you mentioned the blistering times that Daniel Resch has been putting. If it was that these drivers for the GT class would have had to make one more pit stop, I was wondering, could Resch maybe just back his time down? He's got such a huge gap back. It's like he back his time down and be able to make it the rest of the way. But obviously, you've stated that both classes now are basically making their final rounds of pit stops when the prototypes finally decide to pit.
Yes, it's. You thought maybe some people would try to short pit it, but just based on lap times and the tires and the way that the tires have not really fallen off, it really isn't a factor on short pitting or not. It's just get as far as you can with your tires and your fuel and then come in and take off.
Now, a couple of drivers, one in particular in the GT class, are running a little bit further here before coming to pit road. One of them is the 12 of Brian Zablensky. Right now, he is 3rd in the GT class, and we got some prototypes on pit road as well.
Yeah, this is coming to around the time that they needed to come in and pit. It's past the 1 hour and 40 marker, so they've got an hour left, less than an hour left, so they are good to pit and take off from here on out.
They're pitting when the fuel window opens. This is a couple laps, about 3 to 4 laps earlier than they pitted on the last round. They all came to pit road with about 29 to 31 laps on their tires. These guys are now pitting with maybe about 26, 27 laps on their tires. So it looks like they're basically, as soon as the window's open, they're just going to get the fuel necessary to make it the rest of the way.
And the sun is starting to come up, so we're going to be ending this race with the sun completely at its highest point. So the tires could be an issue coming here at the end.
I mean, we saw in the daytime the great racing that was going on between Alessandrini, Robillard, and at the time Kyle Hayer. Then we got into the nighttime, and it looked like the gap consistently stayed close between Alessandrini and Robillard. Now, in the daytime, you got to wonder just how good of a race it's going to be between these two now. How are their cars going to adjust to the daytime conditions? And wait a minute, I think the 95's coming out with the top 2. I think we got a 3-horse race here. How did he gain so much time on pit road?
Maybe the other 2 cars came in and they got tires while Kyle Hayer did not get tires. That is the only way that I could think of. Or he short pitted on fuel and just didn't completely fuel up. It feels like he's confident to just drive with these guys, but he is back in the mixture, and it is a top 3 fight for the lead here in the prototypes.
All of a sudden, it was a 1v1 battle. It's now turned into a triple threat as Kyle Hayer has entered the fray. And I'm not certain what the strategy was, but look out right for the leaders! Oh my goodness, that's a 503 of Benson Ty, and he almost took out the entire top 3.
Luckily, you did not take out anyone, but that is a very scary moment for these drivers right there.
Actually wasn't the top 3 at the time. They're running 3rd through 5th as Zachary Robinson and Finian Daytona still have to pit, but still they'll probably cycle around as the top 3. And I think that might have actually helped the 13 a little bit because he didn't have to check up nearly as much as Robillard and Heyer did.
So I'm looking at Heyer's pit stop, and it looks like he got tires and got not a complete full tank of gas. He feels confident that he got enough fuel to get all the way to the end, and it was enough time to save up to keep up with these 3 cars.
Let's think about this here. I mean, how many laps do we think they ran in the last hour? Maybe... Oh, boy. I don't know. Did they run maybe only 23, 24, 25? Because that's what I would kind of think is what they'd have to run here in this final hour to be able to make it. That might be a bit of a gamble for the 95, but we'll see if it pans out.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. I mean, he's in the back of these 3 cars, so he's going to have the best draft. The way that he could save fuel is by drafting with these guys. I mean, Matt, have you driven with these prototypes? Do you know if any way to save fuel with these cars?
Not here. You cannot save fuel here. It's here's the thing. If you let off, you're losing time. It's more or less what you got is what you got. You got to run with it.
So you heard it from Matt. I mean, you're not saving fuel, so he probably did the quick math, and tried to figure out, do I have enough fuel if I just short it here? And I think he might have gotten the timing right. We're going to have to wait and see, though.
Let's look at the risk versus reward. I mean, the reward is he's up here now in the hunt, possibly to go for a trifecta, 3 wins in 3 starts this season. The risk is he would probably finish no worse than 6th. He's chasing a championship. None of his championship competitors are anywhere close to him. A number of them weren't even in this event. So if he finishes 6th, he's going to win the championship anyway on this type of a risky move. So, why not go for it and try and go 3 for 3?
Yeah, I think a car to watch out for has got to be Chad Frankenfield. He's been running laps. He was one of the first prototypes to come into the pits, but he came into the pits way earlier than everyone else, about 5 to 10 laps earlier. So I don't know if he has enough fuel to get to the end. I know he probably has the tires to get to the end, but I don't know if he has enough fuel to get there, so he might have to pit one more time. But he's probably the only car out here that needs to pit one more time besides the top 2 that are up right now.
I think right now Frankenfield will have to pit before the conclusion because he is currently on his 19th lap since making that pit stop after spinning. And these drivers looks like they can make it about 31, 32 laps. I'm pretty sure we're going to complete another 12, 13 laps before we reach the end of this race. So I think Frankenfield is going to have to come to pit road. I don't think he can save nearly enough fuel to make it to the end.
Probably not, but I'm wondering, with the top 2 of the prototypes staying out for as long as they are, how much are these 3 cars from 3rd to 5th, how much time are they gaining by drafting with one another? Are they going to be, how much time are they able to catch on the 99? And
if we look in terms of the last lap, the 13:08.95 ran a full second faster than the race leader in the 99 of Daytona. So they are closing quickly, and Daytona is losing a lot of time with staying out.
So by staying out, you're losing time like that. Also, you're giving Frankenfield enough time to come back and possibly battle it out for a 4th, 5th position.
That's a great point, and I was going to bring this up, and you actually just kind of built a bridge for me for that. With the situation with Daytona, he knows he's not going to win this race. He knows that he doesn't have the strategy, he doesn't have the track position, he knows he's going to have to pit, all that stuff. You basically have to choose who's the car you're battling, and right now it's really been between himself, Robinson, and Frankenfield for the 4th position. So, or the 3rd position, or no, I'm sorry, 4th position. So right now, I kind of think he's kind of having to focus maybe more so on Zachary Robinson, knowing Frankenfield will have to pit. I think that's where he's got to basically focus his attention on where he's running in relation to Robinson and figure out, how do I strategize to keep myself ahead of him? Because right now, 4th's about the best I can finish.
Yeah, and Frankenfield, if he can run a lot of clean laps, he might be able to catch up to Robinson if he's able to run clean laps. He's been looking quick, except for those times where he's accidentally spun out, got off track, and had to pit. But he was running faster than Robinson earlier in the race until he had to come in early because of his spin out. So I wonder if there's any real damage or anything that's causing him to run slower than Robinson. But I think Frankenfields might be able to come in and battle for the 5th and 4th spot.
Right now, it's looking like there's not really a whole lot of urgency for Robillard. Either that or his car is just not handling as well as it did in the nighttime conditions, because he's been able to get up there a little bit to the back bumper of the 13, but then he kind of tapers off a little, especially in the road course section. As a matter of fact, looks like he might be under fire from Kyle Heyer.
The 13 car looked like he was pulling off of the straightaway, so there must have been something that happened during the chicane. Something must have caused that the 08 to just slow down so much.
Looks like it's going to be Robillard running a little bit wide there in turn 1. That opened the door for Kyle Heyer, and he will clear into second place. So now the 95's in the second position. We haven't seen him up here with the top 2 pretty much since we got into the twilight conditions earlier on. Now we're going to see if he's got a car that can get up here and battle Alessandrini for the race lead.
Sun comes up, and here comes Heyer as he is trying to get up with the 13 car, which once pit stops go through, it's going to be a battle for the lead.
Final pit stop of the day for Chad Frankenfield as he is in his pit box. So now everybody should be good to go to the conclusion of this race on fuel. Question is, what condition will their tires be in by the end of this race? That might be where everyone's going to be playing conservation now.
Heyer is probably the car to watch to see if he does have the fuel to make it. As the 13 car, really, I'm wondering if he's able to get through this chicane well and better than everyone else. Can he gap it? Can he get enough spacing to where the draft isn't a factor?
Here's an interesting thing too. In terms of knowing who you're racing, we saw that tremendous battling going on between the 13 and the 08 during the nighttime conditions. So they were sizing each other up. The 95 was nowhere to be seen. Now he's up here. So now, the 13's looking back in his rearview mirror thinking, okay, now where are his strengths? I don't have any idea. I haven't seen him for a while.
I think pulling away and just trying to get as far away from everyone is probably the best option, which is what he's trying to do here. But I think the draft is it's too strong, and here comes the 08 catching up.
He got a good run there with the draft on the front straightaway, slung to the inside, takes second place back away from Kyle Heyer, who did not put up a fight. And Robillard, who finished second to Heyer last week, wants to keep the 95 in his rearview mirror this week. And Takuna, who was the one that stayed out the longest of the prototypes, he has slotted into the 5th position. Zachary Robinson has gotten by him for 4th, and he's pretty firmly in control of that spot now, as looks like Takuna having a little trouble getting around one of the GT machines. I believe that was Kevin Zhu. But it looks like that strategy of staying out longer did not pan out for Takuna. He's basically lost 4th place, and he is about 22 seconds back from Robinson now for that position.
Wasn't the way you wanted it to go down, but it's around the same spacing that they were having before pit stops went through. So it's not really a huge strain on these cars. But you hope that maybe he would have had a to catch up and battle for 4th instead of being so far back.
We'll probably be focusing mostly in the remainder of this race on that top 3. You see Daniel Rush continuing to show the way in the GT class, looking to go 2 for 3 in his starts here in this series. Max Lupfer looking to lock up a championship. He's currently in 2nd, 40 seconds back from Daniel Rush, actually 46 seconds back, and then a full minute behind him is 3rd place, and that is Liam Sheen. I'm pretty certain that only 4 of the GT cars are running on the lead lap. Rexing, Zhu, Riesener, Hines, and Ty are all a lap down to Daniel Resch. Not the Daytona prototypes, but a car in their own class, race leader Daniel Resch.
Daniel Resch, once he got new tires, a fresh tank of fuel, has actually ran his fastest lap about 2 laps after he went into the pits with a 2:02.2. So this man he's not slowing down ever since these pit stops.
You think about it too. Daniel Resch ended up finishing with the win back at Watkins Glen. Max Lupfer, he ended up winning Road America 2 weeks ago. Now, in terms of the point standings, Daniel Resch comes into this 7th in the stands. He lost 6 spots after the Road America race. Imagine if Resch had actually run in the Road America race. That would have been a heck of a battle between those two, Lupfer and Resch, for the championship.
It really would have been. Also more information on Lupfer after he came in for his pit stops. He ran his fastest lap at a 2:02.6, so 2/10 off of what we have Resch running, but Lupfer still running at a very fast speed with these GT cars.
Chad Frankenfield could very well at least finish out the season as high as 2nd in the Daytona prototype points. He was 4th coming into this race, but a couple of guys ahead of him in points, Kyle Stracharz and Matt Shinosky, are not in today's event, so he'll at least finish, I would think, up inside of the top 2, but he was 34 points back from Kyle Heyer coming into this race. And of course, with Kyle up here now in the 3rd position, Frankenfield back in 6th, there's really no contest for that championship either. We know the risk that with the not taking nearly as much fuel for Kyle Heyer, he's up here with the top 2. He was willing to take that risk. He knows he's not going to finish any worse than 6th, even if he wrecks out of this race. So, if you're the 95, how aggressive are you going to be in the closing stages of this race in trying to go 3 for 3 in trips to victory lane?
I mean, yeah, you want to be aggressive here, but at the same time, you got to be just waiting for your time. Wait for about 20 minutes left and then make your move. Just because of how these cars have been running, you're not really getting away from anyone. It's just setting yourself up so that you guys have to catch up and stay with a 13 car with the 08 and this 95 machine. Not really looking like they're staying right on top of the 13, but looks like they're just waiting for their moment to finally pounce like they are right now as the 08's going on the outside.
They had to get around Ethan Riesener at the exit of that chicane, and Robillard was not willing to lift, jumps up to the top side. Look at this. Kyle Heyer is going to jump up there and help him. 2 cars up top against the 13 down low. How's this going to match up when they get to turn 1?
This is the action we were seeing back when these 3 were right on top of each other earlier in the race, and it's the same exact thing. As the 13 car is going to still stay in first, but they are still a blanket could be on top of all 3 of them.
We saw the 08 able to swing around the outside under nighttime conditions, apparently not able to find the grip here as the sun is beginning to beat down on the pavement, probably bringing the temp up back again. Let's see what the track temp is now with the sun out there. Well, it's only gone up a little bit. It's 76 degrees still. It might warm up when we get closer to the end of this race, but boy, that 08 looked a little loose down there on the bottoms. They're trying to make their way around Liam Sheen in the 60.
Yeah, they were trying to get around Sheen, and Sheen was able to block. They allow the 08 to get by the 13 car, but they are still staying right on top of one another as we're going around turn number 2.
About it is, though, when Alexandri has actually been out in front, it's taken a while for Robillard to get around him, but as soon as the 08 passes him, the 13 passes him right back, and it looks like it's going to be deja vu again. That 13 up to the outside, going to try and get some side draft heading down to the chicane.
I mean, it looks like the 95 really just waiting for his moment. He's not really trying to push it to battle for the lead, but he's content just to stay here in 3rd place. Not really trying to get himself into any trouble, just laying back, helping whoever wants to go for the lead, and just waiting for his moment. But we're coming to the 2-hour marker. 40 minutes left in this race. It's been a long one. You mentally got to stay strong as the 13 car is coming into the pits.
This is interesting.
Maybe my math was off, but it looks like he's coming in for sure to get those pit stop and make sure he is full to the brim.
Now, you'd kind of think that maybe that strategy wasn't so crazy by Kyle Heyer not taking as much fuel to get up here with these guys. If indeed they can't make it on fuel, they should all then be on the same sequence. And that strategy, that short pit strategy, really was a great call by the 95.
Yeah, not fully filling up, but making sure that you have enough gas to stay with these guys until they need to pit really is looking strong. But now it's up to, can we push this car? I really thought that they were able to go to the distance from where they pitted just based on how that last run went. The first time they pit to when the first time that they pit to the last time they pit, it was about an hour distance. So I thought maybe they had enough time to get to the end from that last pit stop, but obviously the 13 car did not feel like it was comfortable enough to make it all the way out there, and that's why he came into the pits.
Well, let's try and figure this out in somewhat rounded numbers. Right now, the top two, Robillard and Heyer, are currently on their 9th lap. Their running lap time's a little under 2 minutes. So right now, that would equal out somewhere in the vicinity of about 21, maybe somewhere 21 to 23 laps. And we know that they can make it at least 30 laps on a tank of fuel. So that's right on the cusp of maybe them being anywhere from 1 to 2 laps short, perhaps.
Well, what could have happened is they all could have been short pitting here. It's just, we're going to see here if anyone's going to come in the pits, and that doesn't look like it, but they all could have been short pitting on fuel to try to get an advantage on someone else.
We do know that the 13 took tires. We saw him up on the jacks there, so obviously with the fresh rubber, he may be able to make up some ground here on the top two. And if these two do have to pit before this race is over, that could be very much advantage 13.
Very much so could be. Now
Here's
it's just a waiting game.
A thing that we bring up more towards the closing stage, but maybe we should bring up here is these guys may have to go an extra lap over what they're projecting they've got to go, because it's when the clock hits zeros, the next time they hit the start-finish line is the white flag for them. So let's say that they cross the line just a few seconds before we hit the zeros. They'd have to go around another 2 times rather than another 1 lap, which may be what they're projecting.
It could be that, but we also saw that you're able to go further than what some of these other cars were going. You can go another lap or so. It's tricky to see, but you have to just wait until we get to a next couple of laps to see if these front two are going to pit or not. But it's very tricky to figure out what this 13 car, what the situation was without us really truly knowing what was going down.
Another thing, too, that maybe is a little bit different from the other 2 races, we only had 10 GT cars at Watkins Glen, 9 GT cars at Road America. So when the field started thinning out and some drivers were putting it behind the wall, we would have maybe 5, 6, maybe even as little as 4 GT cars out there on track. We had so many GT cars start this race, there are still 9 of them out there that could certainly play a factor in being slower traffic for these race leaders.
Yeah, we've seen that. We've seen them catching the GT cars at bad spots, at the bus stop, at certain corners. I mean, there's certain spots that just are awful to catch a GT car, and we're hoping that these guys don't catch them there, and that's what they're hoping. But it's going to be close action, as I don't think these top 2 cars are going to split up anytime soon. They've been on top of each other. We saw it throughout the whole entire race. The top 2 cars have been battling it out throughout this whole entire run.
They have, and as I'm actually looking right now between their lap times and the lap times of 13 of Alessandrini, who came to pit road, he is chipping away little by little, but it's not really a big chunk. He's maybe chipping away 2 to 3 tenths a lap, and so that's not gaining him nearly as much, I think, as he needs to if these guys, these top 2, do come to pit road.
Well, I mean, just a couple of tenths is a lot, but I mean, he needs more, really, to continue catching him. But it is still impressive that he's gaining that much with these 2 drafting. So if they continue staying side by side, if continue battling, you might see the 13 machine might be able to gain more time. A little update on cars that have had to take it into the garage. The 503 finally put it in and was not able to finish this race out. That's a shame. He tried so hard, but he did have to disconnect and is no longer running.
That car managed to run for a little over 2 hours, which, based on the smoke he was trailing back at the midway point, is a miracle in itself. But, tough break, obviously, for him having to retire early, but definitely a good job at least soldiering on that damaged machine. It's like he's going to finish 9th in the Ford GT class here today. Well, the question is, can the top 2 make it the rest of the way on fuel? Will they have to pit at some point before this race is over? We're going to take one last commercial break, and then we'll come back here for around the final half hour of this race to the checkers, continuing on the 2.4 hours at Daytona.
Welcome, race fans, to Championship Weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway.
Picture perfect day, temperature around 78 degrees, going for around 80. Fans pouring into the Homestead Miami Speedway as everyone awaits a new series champion.
Car in the wall! Is it going to bring out the yellow? It is! Chad Baconfield, your winner at Auto Club. He's got him! Here comes the finish!
They're going to be side by side!
He got him! Oh my gosh!
How cool would it be for Ethan Burrell to be able to win the season finale, get his first win of the season, and get a championship to boot? Rutgers going to Homestead, a must-win situation. It comes true today.
Beautiful but very warm Sunday afternoon.
Campgrounds are full. Happy race day, everybody. It's going to be a great afternoon for racing. You can't ask for anything more special than what we have here tonight. Drivers, start your engines! Let the party begin.
Beautiful but very warm Sunday afternoon.
Campgrounds are full. Happy race day, everybody. It's going to be a great afternoon for racing. You can't ask for anything more special than what we have here tonight. Drivers, start your engines! Let the party begin.
Beautiful but very warm Sunday afternoon.
Campgrounds are full. Happy race day, everybody. It's going to be a great afternoon for racing. You can't ask for anything more special than what we have here tonight. Drivers, start your engines! Let the party begin.
to championship weekend at Homestead Miami Speedway.
Picture perfect day, temperatures around 78 degrees, going for around 80 fans pouring into the Homestead Miami Speedway as everyone awaits a new series champion.
Car in the wall! Is it gonna bring out the yellow? It is! Chad Blankenfield, your winner at Auto Club. He's got him! Here comes the finish!
They're gonna be side by side.
He got him! Oh my gosh!
How cool would it be for Ethan Burrell to be able to win the season finale, get his first win of the season, and get a championship to boot? Rutgers going to Homestead, a must-win situation. It comes true today. Haven't missed a thing as we welcome you back to the season finale of the ERL Grand Elite EisenDesigns Sports Car Series, and we are completely perplexed up here in the booth. Sam, you've been working the calculators and everything, and now we have like 4 or 5 different storylines going on right now with our top 5.
I'm throwing my calculator out the window because it's all wrong. I don't know what's going on. I thought the 08, the 13 would have been to the go, but they both pitted. I thought the 95 was going to be close, but he's still out there running. But the car that we need to watch out for has got to be that 50 machine, because he's the one who's out there, who's been out there pitted the latest besides Frankenfield and the 99 machine. So I do not know who's going to win this race. It was all fuel strategy at this point. And now it's down to see who's going to make it, because that 95 machine, I don't think he has enough fuel, and I think he needs to come in at least one more time.
And you know, we brought this up before we came back here on the air, was we projected, and we'll put this in quotation marks, Frankenfield good to go the rest of the way with the pit stop that he made. The 50 of Zachary Robinson is only out there 2 laps longer than Frankenfield was. So if Frankenfield's good to make it the rest of the way, where does that put Robinson with those extra 2 laps?
Robinson's looking pretty where he's at right now. He probably is going to be in the lead at some point, because this 95 machine should not make it to the end, just based on all of the so-called projections that we've done. But the last fuel pit stop with an hour and 40 left, when everyone was coming in, we don't know what exact fuel situations everyone did, because I was making guesses on what fuel looked like, and obviously my guesses were wrong if the 13 and the 08 came in. So it's going to be coming close. With 20 minutes left, I think that's when we're going to really see who needs to pit and who doesn't need to pit. Because with 20 minutes left, pitting then, it's going to be really risky. But you're going to have to figure out, just by watching the rest of this race, this is crazy how much fuel strategy is involved here.
You said that with Kyle Heyer being able to close up as much as he did, that he probably didn't take nearly as much fuel. I think he also didn't take any tires on that pit stop, because we saw during the commercial break, he locked up that left front going into turn 1. So I think he's out there on pretty worn tires.
Now, he did take tires. He was taking tires and fuel at the same time. I went back and rewatched that whole entire pit stop. He did get new tires, but with locking up the way that he did, those tires probably aren't as happy as they once were.
Now, if the 95 can't make it, and if that puts the ball in the court of Zachary Robinson, we then would have to look at the interval between himself and the 13 of DJ Alessandrini. Now, currently, Alessandrini is about 13 seconds back from Robinson. He has been chipping away, but do you think a 13-second gap is enough for Robinson to hold on if he is able to make it on fuel?
I think a 13-second is going to be close. I mean, we're 25 seconds, a little bit less than 25 minutes into this session being over, and then you got maybe another lap after that. So it's going to be close, but I think 13 seconds will be enough.
Now we have just entered into 28 minutes remaining in this race, so it'll be interesting to see if indeed it's going to be the battle between the 50 and the 13, or does the 95 have some special reserve fuel tank that we don't know about? Because, I mean, he's shocked us with his ability to be able to catch back up to the top two when he was 20 seconds back before the pit stops began. Maybe he's got another miracle in his pocket.
I mean, something we also need to be talking about is before the 13 car came in, it was a 3-car battle that we had. And you might be wondering, why aren't we talking about the 08? Well, that's because the 13 car came in so early. He didn't need to be in pit road as long as the 08 did. So that's why he gained so much time by short pitting the way that he did.
It also, do you think, maybe have been the way that both the 13 and the 08 approached pit road? Maybe someone entering pit road a little bit more conservatively and losing time that way?
There is the possible chance of that, but they both were in pit roads exactly the same amount of time when they came in at an hour and 40, so they both did get the same amount of fuel. So yeah, I'm thinking that it is because the short pitted and the fact that he didn't need to be in pit road as long as the 08 was.
And you can see with the two of them separated now, I mean, both of them looked fairly equal to each other in terms of lap times, in terms of, the track position between each other, in not only the beginning but the middle stages of this race. Now we're starting to see with the two of them breaking away from each other, the 13 is a lot faster than the 08. He's been besting Robillard by maybe about half a second, or half a tenth of a second rather, every lap. So he is steadily pulling away, and Robillard is steadily seeing potentially, and we'll put that in quotes, potentially a battle for the race win drifting away.
Now you might be wondering, why aren't we talking about the other series that's out there, the GT cars? We're not really stressing about them as much as prototypes because we already, just based on the fact of how big the distance is, Daniel Resch has been dominating the GT cars. He's been out there in front of everyone by so much. Just looking through the field, it looks like Liam Sheen, my bad, has actually had to come into the pits. His front end looks destroyed.
Yes, it
up
does.
there. But I mean, Daniel Resch has been dominating the GT series, and we've been trying to keep up with them as much as we can. But prototypes, there is the battle for the lead that we've been trying to keep up with all race long.
And I'll tell you what, that is a tough break there for Liam Sheen as well, because he has spent a good portion of this race locked in that third position. And it looks like he's going to finish down in 8th of the GT cars here today. So that's a tough break for him. The guy that benefits from that is Brian Zablensky. He jumps up into the 3rd position, and this is a guy who last time out at back at Watkins Glen, rather, the first race of the season, he finished in the 3rd position. Ironically enough, the guy that finished first was Daniel Resch. So the top 3 look somewhat similar. The only difference is Lupfer is in 2nd place. It was Drew Eisenman who came into tonight's race, the points leader, who was 2nd after the Watkins Glen event.
And we continue to wait on to see if the 95 car is going to pit, as we are coming to a minute, an hour, 2 hours and 19 minutes into this race. Just a couple more minutes left in this thing out of our 2 hour and 40-minute race. Right now, Kyle, I mean, I cannot believe this 95 machine is in the lead at the moment. He spun out, had issues in the middle of this race, short fuel pitted to get up there with the top 3. And now he's in the lead while the other 2 cars that he was racing with are in the middle of the prototype field.
But right now, as I'm looking at the lap times and looking at the intervals, things are looking a little bit brighter for Alessandrini in that 13 machine, because, I don't think, with him having to hit pit road, and with the 08 having to hit pit road, I don't think the 95 can make it these final 23 minutes without having to hit pit lane. And the interval now between the 50 of Zachary Robinson and the 13 has been cut down to less than 10 seconds. It's actually nearing 9 seconds. So all of a sudden, DJ Alessandrini is realizing it's time to go. He is chipping away very quickly at 2nd place. As a matter of fact, I believe the 50 just hit pit lane.
Now the 50 spun out. He had an issue coming off of the bus stop. He had the GT leader of Daniel Resch in front of him. He was waiting for his time, hits the rumble strips, and his car slides and smashes into the wall, which this now gives the 13 second place and a chance to have the win if this 95 comes into the pits.
That is a tough break there for Robinson. I mean, with the way the 13 was running him down, I'm not certain he could have held him off, but boy, he was in line at least for a chance, and pretty significant damage to the left front. He is now to the attention of his crew, and this is not only going to lose him a chance at the win, but this is going to drop him quite a ways down. I don't know if he'll necessarily lose fifth to he does. He loses fifth to Daytona. He may lose, fourth to Daytona. He may lose fifth to Frankenfield. He will. So this is going to drop him all the way down to sixth, a very costly mistake.
Yeah, it was severe damage on the front end. That's going to cost him, and he's going to be staying in pits for that. Updates on cars that have disconnected from the server. Liam Shesh has disconnected. He had too much damage for him to continue racing, but now we're backed up front with the prototypes. This 95 machine is still out, and he's going to have to pit at some point, but if he keeps on staying out for this much, I mean, he might not have to be in the pits for very long.
I don't have to be in the pits for very long, but it's 26 seconds between himself and the 13. I kind of have the feeling, especially with the fact that we saw Daytona and Frankenfield be able to make their way around Robinson for fourth and fifth as easily as they did, and I think they had a bigger interval between themselves and the 50 car. I don't think it'll be that difficult for Alessandrini to be able to move his way around the 95 if the 95 hits pit road.
Matt Rod, I hope you're still in the booth, but how much fuel do you really need here at the end with how much short pitting that we've been seeing around it? Do you think that the 95 has a shot if he comes in and just gets a couple of good drops of fuel?
It's kind of the risk versus reward kind of thing. I mean, do you want to go down the pit road speed, which is 55, sit for about 10 seconds for fuel, and then again run 55 miles an hour and then have to take that access road? I mean, here's the thing, by that time you're probably going to lose the lead or at least be battling for the lead. I don't know if that's really a risk he wants to take, but it's going to have to be something he most likely will have to take. Just by our math here, it looks like we have 94 laps. If they continue running the pace they are, it would be 94 laps. They're currently on lap 81 of 94. So I'd definitely say he cannot stretch into the distance. He's going to have to pit one more time. It's just he's going to have to decide whether to take tires and fuel or just take a splash of fuel and hope they'll get him to the end.
It is, too, if you remember back to when he had that short pit strategy and he was up there with Alessandrini and Robillard. He spent most of his time running third of that group, so we really don't know what this car has on fresh tires as far as single car speed. We don't know how he would match up against the 13 if he comes to pit road, if he would have a strong enough car and a fast enough car to turn lap times to reel the 13 car back in before the race is over, if indeed he does decide to come down and do that quick little short pit.
Short pit? Does he short pit now and hope that he short pitted enough, or does he wait until later? It's got to be continue to wait and see.
Hey, what? Even with the fact that he's been out there on these tires for 29 laps, and Alessandrini has been out there for 14 laps, the lap times are still somewhat similar. Alessandrini has not really reeled him in that much. It's still about a 27-second gap, and it's been that way for the last 3 laps or so.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing that I've been seeing with both the GT cars and the prototypes is that the tires aren't really falling off that much. They're pretty much staying the same. It's maybe the first 3 to 4 laps, your car is really moving and wants to go the fastest it's going to go, and then it practically falls off. And I don't think that you really need to come in and get pits for tires this time around, because you already did come for tires around the hour and 40-minute marker, so he should be fine with tires, but fuel is the issue here.
Absolutely. How about one guy that had the day start out horribly for him, but it looks like at this point in time, he's going to be finishing his first start in the GT class with a 4th place run. Jared Rexing, I mean, that car was all crunched up on the front in, I think, the first half hour of this race. He's been able to stay out there. We had, of course, Liam Sheen run into some issues, so he moves up into the top 5. I think he also managed to pass Kevin Zhu on the last round of pit stops for the GT cars. So he is in 4th place. A great run for a car that kind of looks like it probably should be back behind the wall.
Yeah, and honestly, you didn't think that he was going to have the power with how much it looks damaged. But Jared Rexine has been just continuously pushing throughout this race. Every pit stop, trying to get a little bit more damage done and fixed up. And he's just been trucking along and seeing cars and not being able to finish this race due to maybe mental problems to them wrecking. But he's been out there just pushing it to its limit that he can go with this car. And it's been working out for him where he's at right now.
Ex-Looper up there, 2nd place in the GT class. He's just trying to continue to run in that spot. He's chasing the championship. He's about 16 3/4 minutes away from that. As you see, going by him is the 13 of DJ Alessandrini, so a little bit slower of a lap there, having to get around those 2 GT machines. The gap still remains somewhere around a little under 27 seconds. It's about 26.7 seconds, the distance between himself and the 95.
This 95 machine really needs these GT cars to somehow block for him, because I don't think that there is enough, even if he comes into the pits, I don't think he has a big enough gap right now to come out and be within 8 seconds or 10 seconds. I think he might come out to be about 15 to 20 seconds after he gets out of the pits. And going that wide is not good for him either, as he takes the first corner extremely wide, but is able to keep his car straight and moving, is the 95 machine.
Well, I don't know if there's enough time for it. Well, actually, it's gone. There was actually a chance that we could have had the 08 closing in on the 13, but he caught 2 of the GT cars entering the chicane, had to back up his corner so much that he lost 5 seconds in just that little section of the track. He's now 10 seconds back behind Alessandrini, so what was looking like a possible glimmer of hope as he was laying down some good lap times for Robillard, it's now looks like it's gone away.
It's really what, higher needs to happen to that 13 machine, is moments like that where you're just losing time and you're able to just gain it because of lap cars and GT cars being in the way.
Now in the 4th position, he's got about 6 seconds between. Oh, he just spun!
Oh.
He just spun it off the exit of turn 1.
That's going to be the
try and turn it back
99
around,
machine.
and yeah, that's Daytona. He's going to lose 4th to Frankenfield as a result.
You were hoping he would be able to just stay clean. I mean, it was looking like Frankenfield was gaining on him, but a spin out just gives Frankenfield that position.
Ow. Tough break there for Daytona and Frankenfield, who had that issue earlier on, trying to get around a slower machine through the bus stop. Looks like he's going to, at least for the moment, slot up into the 4th position, which, when you look back at the 2 races he's been in so far this season, I think this is maybe the strongest we've seen him. He had early issues both at Watkins Glen and at Road America. Wasn't really able to battle back at Watkins Glen, finished 9th. He finished 4th at Road America, long ways back. But I think if we took all 3 of the races, Glen, Road America, and here today, this has been the strongest we've seen out of the 15.
It really has been.
Well, a little under 14 minutes. Oh, we just hit the cones. Kyle Hayter overdrove that corner, took out a number of cones, and that's going to lose him some time there. I think the handling's really going away on that 95 machine now.
And maybe the tires are coming in, or it's that fatigue. He's so close to the end. And we're coming to the 10-minute marker, and you're so close. Yeah, you have to come in possibly to get fuel and maybe tires, which if he has to get tires, it could be the end of his race for winning this thing. Not the complete end of his race, but his chance to win the race could be over.
Let me bring you in as a driver. You know the fact that you've got older tires. You know that you're getting closer and closer to the end of this race. Is there something like a sense of urgency inside of you of, hey, I got to lay down really good lap times to get this, get these laps done, get this time ticked away, and that's what caused you to make some mistakes like that?
I'm going to throw that to Matt Rod, because he would know better than I would. That's if he's here.
Sorry, what?
Well, while we were asking, with the situation that Kyle Heyer is in right now, he knows that he's about 13 minutes away from maybe being able to pull off this victory. With knowing that you've got to lay down good lap times and everything, is that's what's causing him to make these mistakes? He just overdrove turn 1.
I mean, here's kind of the critical point where you're looking at your gas and you're trying to figure out, hey, I've got about a 27-second lead on second place. Is there a point where I can just brake a little bit earlier, let off, maybe run half throttle trying to save gas? Is that any vibe? Or is it, hey, I know I'm going to have to pit. Might as well just run the snot out of it, race, and hope that I get just enough time where I can dive in pit road, grab a splash of gas, and get out right in front of him, or at least be battling second place. It's just a fine line of making sure you don't wreck the car in the process or do anything too rash that is going to lose you more time than anything else.
Well, I have a feeling we've got a little under 12 minutes left to go. And Kyle Heyer is about when he hits the line to complete his 27th lap. And remember, back when we had the first round of pit stops, the prototypes, the furthest car was Daytona. He went 31 laps. So I don't see this race ending in 4 laps for Kyle Heyer.
No, it's not going to end in 4 laps. But, I mean, like Matt Reb was saying, you can try to feather it, not take it as hard in the middle of the road course section of this track. But at the same time, it's a real risk and reward. And I don't think that you would even feathering it through the sections, you'd be saving enough fuel to make it around this course, because you'd need a couple of laps to save, and you are not saving a couple of laps by starting now to save fuel.
On his 28th lap, okay, so let me see if I can just do this in my head. Let's say that he goes to 31 laps. So that'd be 3 laps that he'd have, or no, well, maybe he could do 4 laps here. At just a little under 2 minutes, so that's about 8 minutes. I don't think he could back it down enough to manipulate the clock for him to be able to have zeros on the clock on his final lap of fuel.
I mean,
that's asking to save 2 minutes.
It is asking for a lot, but you never know. I mean, he's got that 27 second lead on second place. He could try to do the best he can at saving fuel, or he needs to come in now.
Here's kind of the point where you have to make that decision of, can I save enough, or am I good to go? Can I just run it out? And it's kind of the moment where once you start playing crew chief and driver in your head, that's when the big mistakes start coming out.
I can't remember I'm sorry, Dan. I was just going to ask Matt. I can't remember if he said it or not when we were, having the practice session and everything. We were trying to get some info from Matt at that time. These cars, do they have a clutch?
I don't believe they do.
The prototypes, I don't think they do.
I think it's a sequential gearbox, so.
So I was trying to think if that might be an option for Kyle Heyer to maybe try and save a little bit, coast into the corners and clutch it.
I mean, another option is always just cutting the ignition and just rolling it down the straightaway where, hey, you're not too low in RPM, so you can kick it back on, and it'll just fire right back up. I mean, the worst case scenario is cutting the engine off, letting the RPMs get so low that it's not going to refire and you have to manually reignite.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit too much of a risk, especially with trying to reignite it. But with how far that we've been seeing this 95 go and push his car, you got to wonder, could the 13 and 08 stayed out, or did they know for sure they weren't going to make it?
See, that's what really surprises me, is how the 95 has been able to go as far as he can if he did not take the full capacity of fuel. I mean, he was 20 seconds back, somehow was able to close that up. The only other thing I could possibly think of that he might have done would have been be really aggressive coming onto pit road on the entry and gained a lot of time that way.
Could have been it, but it's really interesting just to see the difference on that, the different strategies that you have for these cars, and just seeing how far they can push it as we are coming down to the final couple of minutes of this race.
8 minutes on the clock. And he's about to complete his 29th lap. If he's been able to save enough, he might be able to make it perhaps 32, maybe stretch it to 33 laps, but even then, I still don't know if 4 laps would be enough for him to tick off 7 3/4 minutes on the clock.
Oh, it looks like
here's
the
your
95.
answer.
95 is coming in now. Let's
So
see
what do we do here?
what type of pit stop he is going to have, because this is where it matters. Is he going to get tires? He probably is not going to touch tires at all. He should be just getting a splash of fuel and getting out as fast as possible. Trying not to get a black flag. He's got to stay under 55.
It was really aggressive coming to pit road there too, so that might have answered why he gained so much time before. But here you see.
Gets the splash, gets going. Where is
Oh,
the
this is going to be close. He just crossed the line. He just hit the line when the 95 left his pit box.
They are
this
right
is gonna
there.
Be close.
No, he hits the wall, the 95.
Still stays out in front, though. He's going to, I think, have the lead when he exits pit lane, but not by much.
No,
Here
it
we
is
go
not.
in the final 7 minutes.
The 95 machine did touch the wall when he was exiting out of pit road. Let's see if that affects his car in any way. But here we go. The splash worked.
Matt, as a driver, would damage affect even more the handling of the car in these corners?
You know, ironically, the damage may not be doing anything, but it's really your mind saying, "Uh-oh, I hit that wall. Well, what is it doing? What's different about the car?" Where you start over analyzing things, and that's what really gets you into trouble, saying, "Well, uh-oh, I did this. What's going to happen now? What's happening to it?"
Advantage for Hire is going to be he's going to get to choose the lanes he wants going into the corners, and that's going to kind of force Alessandrini to kind of maybe go out of his comfort zone, try different lines in these corners. But the only thing I can see that might be an advantage for Alessandrini is when we saw that great battling going on between him and Robillard, Alessandrini was really, really good through the road course sections. Alessandrini's on his 21st lap, so we know he can make it on fuel. And look at this, a slingshot to the inside. Is this the battle for the race win? He's going to clear him, and Kyle Hire didn't really put up much of a fight. Does he rather be the second place car rather than the race leader here in these final 5 minutes?
This is what he's been doing all race long. Is he just likes being behind the car that's in front. He might be waiting until the last lap to make the move, because this is what we've been seeing all race long, is that usually the car that gets the slingshot off of the last turn usually is the one that's leading the lap at the end. But this 95 car is looking tough. It doesn't look like it likes getting off these corners. It's very loose and just wants to snap at any moment. But can he stay close enough to where when they're on the super speedway track that they can draft and stay close?
What do you think? Older tires that the 95 car has, how much speed can he gain in the draft? And would it be better with fresh rubber for him to make up ground?
I realistically say once he lost that lead, he more or less lost the battle for this race win. He burnt those tires up so bad in that last run, just trying to gain time, stay ahead, that, I mean, I don't know if he has very much life left in him to battle back. I mean, his only saving grace has to be draft. I mean, you saw how fast the 13 pulled on the 95 coming to the line last lap. So, I mean, that's really his only saving grace, just stay within range.
Heck of a try nonetheless by Kyle Hire, trying to go 3 for 3. Back at the midway point of this race, I had him written off. I thought he was going to be back maybe in just a battle for third place, but somehow he surprised us, got up here with the top 3, got up to the race lead, stayed out a lot longer than we expected. And right now, of course, as well, he's trying to battle for a championship. So I think that with this kind of an effort, even if he finishes runner-up, the fact he's going to be able to hoist a championship trophy with this kind of performance today is going to be really special for him.
He's still trying, though. We'll have to wait and see how these cars are taking these corners, how much rubber is left in that 95 machine. It just looks like he's sliding so much coming off these corners that he's just not able to get the runoff that he needs to stay with the 13.
I think that's exactly where the advantage is for the 13 car. He gets a much better launch. He's able to point it and get back to the throttle off the corner a lot better. than Kyle Heyer is. Heyer's not so bad on corner entry, and he's been still pretty good here on the straightaway portions. I'm actually surprised because it looks like, at least from the last lap, he's closed the distance up a little bit between himself and the 13.
It's a little bit, but it just isn't enough. The 13 got such a gap that there's just not enough time, I think, for him to get up to him, even if, I mean, we're coming close to the end of this race, time-wise, and then you got one more lap after that. So we'll have to wait and see if he has, I mean, we're waiting to see if the 13 car makes a mistake or not. I think that's what the 95 machine is waiting on. Is the 13 going to stay clean, or is it going to be all the 13 just ran away?
I think if you're DJ Alessandrini, you got to look out your windshield now. You can't be worried about the 95 behind. You have to know the situation that Kyle Heyer's on older tires. He's not able to get as good a launch off the corners. You just got to go out there here for these final 2 minutes and hit your marks. You cannot be concerned about the guy behind you now. And Heyer overdrove the corner there, and that could be all she wrote.
Realistically, the best thing that Heyer could really do right now is find a way to get right back under the bumper of the 13. I mean, here's the thing. You don't even have to beat him. Just let him beat himself. As long as you're almost just there pressing, I mean, sooner or later, he's gonna make a mistake.
Yeah, but Jackson Robillard was all over his back bumper a good portion of the midway point of this race, and 13 never made a mistake, and nor could Robillard capitalize on making a move on him, especially on corner entry and even more on corner exit.
I mean, it's just circumstances. I mean, right back then, it was about an hour left to go. This is within 1 minute to go. So, of course, your nerves are going to be high. Your heart's going to be bumping. I mean, this is prime time to make a mistake.
Got a battle here in the closing stages brewing for fourth as well. Chad Frankenfield has been reeled in by Finian Daytona, and this could be an interesting battle for a spot inside of the top 5.
Inside of the top 5 is what they're battling for, as the leaders are just trying to run their laps and coming to the end here.
Last time out at Road America, Frankenfield finished 4th, Daytona finished 6th. Right now they are running 4th and 5th. As we are nearing zeros on the clock, which says to me the next time around it's going to be the white flag. Maybe this might be the white flag, as they may actually just be calling this the final lap, with it being as close as it is to the end of this race. It is the final lap for the race leader, DJ Alessandrini. Let's see if he can hang on for these final corners, not make a mistake, and maybe hand this win over to Kyle Heyer. And looks like the 95 just cannot get it on corner exit. Pushed up on him, took that corner awfully wide. He's got a lot of ground to make up, and I don't think he's going to be able to make it up unless the 13 makes a mistake. This battle here, it's not going to go away on this final lap. Daytona is reeling in Frankenfield, trying to get the drive. Look at Frankenfield trying to break it up as he swerves down the front straightaway.
Frankenfield's trying so hard to keep this position. Daytona's trying to get up there on him. But is there enough? He needs to get a little bit closer here.
He's going to drive it high and then deep into the corner. Gets a good launch off as well and opens up a little bit of distance back between himself and the 99.
But up front,
it's now 2 seconds, by the way, between the 13 and the 95 going through the final corners.
going to the last chicane before you finally go into the last corners here.
Actually, this is coming to the line. And this, I believe, is the checkers for DJ Alessandrini. What a good run for him here today. Can't call it a dominating performance, but he never fell out of the top 3 in race conditions. And you go back to that short pit call, that might have been what won him this race.
I think it might have been him coming in early was what gave him this win. To the 13 machine, what a race. Oh, what a way to win it all.
Here's the battle for 4th. Is Daytona anywhere close enough? He's about maybe 2.5, 3 car lengths back. Can he get enough of a run? He's inching closer and closer. Frankenfield moves
There he
up,
is.
trying to break the draft. Oh, he is there. This could be a photo finish for 4th place. Daytona goes high. Frankenfield tries to block him. Contact. They're going to bring it to the stripe. Frankenfield will hang on, barely. Wow. That was close. There is Daniel Resch, who will be 2 for 3 in his starts here this season. He took a checkers to start out the season at the Glen. He has taken the checkers to finish out the season at Daytona. And Max Lupfer will be taking the championship in the Ford GT class, finishing a very distant 2nd.
This was a very long race, but a very enjoyable one. The prototypes really did bring us a show to watch, constantly being battles up there for the lead. And for the GT cars, it was a dominating performance from that 14 machine of Daniel Resch. He took the lead and never looked back, almost lapping every single car in that division. Insane work by him. But that 13 machine of the prototypes, congratulations to him as well.
Rest in peace, Cones. But there you see, there's the 3 right there in that shot. The 3 that put on the show all race long. Robillard, EisenDesigns, and Kyle Heyer, who is your champion for the season for the Daytona prototypes. Finished 2nd, but boy, he gave it an awfully good try.
That he did. I mean, he was short pitting, and then everything that he did to really put himself in a position to where he was at, finished 2nd. I think that short pit, a fuel stop that he did, really did give him that chance to almost win this race. But overall, winning the championship, good job to Kyle Heyer.
EisenDesigns is still out there doing some victory laps. 14 bringing his car to pit lane. He'll be heading to championship victory lane as well as race victory lane. And oh, that's one way to celebrate. It's our first blowover of the day, and it happens after the race is over. Sure, the crew will be willing to push the 13 car to victory lane, though.
I'm pretty sure they would be honored to push that car.
And I believe we have standing by the 2nd place finisher for the Daytona prototypes and your champion for the Daytona prototypes this season, Kyle Heyer. Let's get a word with him. It's Sam, Matt, and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network Studios booth. You got us?
I sure do, guys. What's up?
First off, congratulations on the championship. A tremendous run for you this entire season. A win in a second. But we want to go back, first off, to how did you gain 20 seconds on the top 2 on that before last round of pit stops?
Well, funny you should say that, because the 2 guys in front, they didn't do their pit stops before the race, so they had to take one during the race. So that was very convenient for me that I was able to catch back up because they had to go take a bio break. So thankfully for me, that worked out quite nicely, and it was just about the right time I needed to get back on their heels.
Call that you made there in the closing stages, I think you stayed out a total of, I think it was about 27, 28 laps. You ended up beating the 13 car off of pit road. Did you have the car to hold him off, or were you basically just thinking, I just got to hold down 2nd place and win this championship?
I didn't have the car to keep up with him. If I had tires, you could have put a turbo on it. It wouldn't have been any better for me. So I had to, when I came to the realization that I wasn't going to beat DJ on speed, I decided I was just going to run the tank out of fuel and try to spend as little time on pit road as possible. Ended up coming out of the pits with tires that were probably melted down to the rim. But I was just able to hang on to 2nd. But DJ, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but DJ is a competitor in Grid Life Touring Cup in the real world. So he's a really, really good race car driver and the inaugural Spec MX5 Sim Racing Challenge champion. So he's got quite the accolades, and no shame in losing to a guy like DJ, but I was working super hard every single lap.
You got anything, Matt?
Not at the moment.
Okay, well, then we're going to turn the microphone over to you. Obviously, a second place gets you the championship, and we're going to let you do some shout-outs.
Yeah, I want to thank Chad and all of Elite for setting this up. I want to thank you guys for broadcasting these 3 races. And I want to thank Gridlife for coming on board and sponsoring this car. A little ironic that one of their drivers is going to beat me tonight, but super happy to get a championship. I don't run a lot of league racing events because I'm usually on the other end of the microphone. So it's kind of fun to come out and be competitive. And this is a car I love, so looking forward to maybe driving it again in the future. But thanks again, guys.
The last 2 events, he hoisted a race win trophy. Not able to do it here today, but he does hoist a championship trophy. Congratulations, Kyle.
Thank you very much, guys. See you later.
All right, and let's bring in the guy that bested him, race winner DJ Alessandrini. DJ, it's Matt, Sam, and Seth up in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yep.
Well, I probably butchered your name quite a bit during this race, but
What did you say it
you
was?
were out. Alessandrini.
Hey, spot on.
Oh, okay, there we go. I think I'm ready for my commentator's license, but man, heck of a run for you here today. You never fell outside of the top 3, but I think the call that got you that win was that short pit call. What made you decide that?
Those guys are just hanging out, just, mooching off of the wind I was pushing out of the way the entire race. I wanted to be a race of all out pace, not, some silly draft shenanigans going into the last little bit. So one thing I mean, this was the first time I've ever driven this car, so I wasn't exactly sure how long the tires take, like fuel wise. So I took the gamble, and with my 6 gallons of fuel I took, I said, probably have tires done by then. And it turns out that was like 4 laps too much fuel, and the tires took way longer. So I knew that I was just going to have to send it for the next little bit. And then to make it exciting, me and Kyle met back up. But by then his tires were absolutely smoked, and mine still had a little bit of life in them. So it ended up working out, but I didn't make my life easy, especially since I really didn't know exactly how long the tires would take to change.
Talk about like the midway point of the race under the nighttime conditions. You and Robillard, it kind of seemed like you two were having a little bit of exchange, kind of testing the waters against each other. Were you guys kind of setting each other up for if you were going to meet up in the closing stages of the race?
No, I think we just got a little bored and started to dice it up a little bit, have some fun. And then at some point in the race, both of us needed to pee, and we wanted to be racing against Kyle again. So we took a pee oath, and we took an extra 20 seconds in our pit stop to go pee. So we're just having fun out there.
Sam or Matt have any questions for you?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of answers one of the questions I had, which was, how did you guys let him gain so much time? We were wondering how Kyle got all that time back, but thanks for answering that one. But was there at any point during the race that you guys felt like, this race is so long, was there any like mental fatigue that was starting to settle in?
You know what? I'm a big nerd, and I do this stuff all the time. So actually, I'm going to be queuing up for the Advanced Mazda race here shortly. I could do this for like 8 hours straight. It's no fatigue at all.
All right. Well, congratulations on your victory. A very great performance for you here today. And we're now going to turn the microphone over to you and let you do some shout outs.
Yeah. Shout out to my fiance. She's currently on vacation right now, and I'm trying to take care of all her animals and stuff. And it's making me realize how much she does every day. So shout out to her for being awesome and everything in my rock.
All right. Well, DJ Alessandrini, first start and first win to cap off the season. Congrats, man.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I think we didn't touch on. We talked about the mechanical fatigue, the mental fatigue. We didn't talk about the body fatigue. Apparently, a couple of guys had to take some bathroom breaks, and that's what made the exciting finish there at the end. One of those guys we're going to bring up here, third place finisher, Jackson Robillard. Jackson, it's Sam, Matt, and Seth up in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Loud and clear.
Third place run for you here today. Looked like you lost a little bit of ground there on that final pit stop. What happened?
I don't know. for completely unexplained reasons, I was about 5 seconds slower in the pits. Our pit stop, our time in the box should have been about the same, given we were talking after the race that we took about the same amount of fuel and we both took tires. So I'm really not sure why. I wasn't really slow in pit lane. I really don't know where the 5 seconds went, but kind of frustrating because otherwise I would have been up there with those guys. Then again, I did spin in the horseshoe, so maybe not.
Oh, true. Well, we saw as well you had a little bit of an issue with some of the slower GT cars, especially entering into the bus stop. But around the midway point, you and the 13 were really mixing it up. Were the two of you kind of sizing each other up, or were you kind of just for the moment trying to figure out strengths and weaknesses to maybe apply that towards the end of the race?
Oh, we were just having fun. It's a long race and some fun in the middle of it,
About the draft here, we saw a lot of drivers be able to utilize the draft and get slingshots. How far back could you be in order to be able to utilize the slipstream to be able to get a run on the super speedway sections?
It seemed like the draft was about effective maybe a second and a half, 2 seconds back, but it was really, you could only really get a run within probably 7 or 8 tenths. But even then, that's really stronger.
You guys, we ran an hour and a half back at Road America when you brought it home in second. How much more different was it? How much more wearing was it to have that extra hour and 10 minutes here today?
It's definitely a lot. It's a lot longer a race, and it's kind of hard to keep your focus. But if you can relax in the middle section of that race, it can be a lot easier. And I think DJ and I and Kyle as well were able to do that pretty well. So by the end, we weren't too tired. I think Kyle was a little bit more, but it wasn't.
If Sam or Matt have any questions here?
I mean, we heard about your P pack that you had with the leader DJ. Was there any other moments where you were having any fatigue, like mental fatigue, or any other moments going on?
Yeah, near the end, it was frustrating. Every little tenth you chip away on the leaders, it can get taken away by traffic or even just making a small mistake, especially with how hot and slick the track was in the last half hour or so. So that was pretty fatiguing, but at the same time, with so little time left in the race, you can kind of push.
You got anything?
Nada.
Okay. Well, a great run for you here today of third, following up the second at Road America. We're going to turn the microphone over to you and let you do some shout-outs.
Just like Road America, I'm not really sure I have any shout-outs to do, unfortunately.
Well, that's quite all right. We'll let you go and take a little bit of a rest now after a grueling race. Third place run. Congrats, man.
Yes, sir. Thanks for the broadcasts.
All right, so now let's start in on the GT class. Let's begin things with the third place finisher, which I forgot who it was. Oh, we don't actually have him. Okay, I thought we
No, he's not.
had Brian Zelensky in the waiting room, but we don't. All right, so we will actually bring in the race winner, and then we'll get the champion afterwards. Daniel, it's Sam, Matt, and Seth up in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
I sure do.
Well, you went to Watkins Glen, you dominated. You come here to Daytona Road Course, you dominate. It was incredible because not only did we see the Daytona prototypes lapping the GT cars, but you had all but 3 other GT cars a lap down. You were in a zone of your own. What was going on there?
Well, I guess it helps that the Mustang's pretty much the only car I drive in iRacing, and Daytona is probably my favorite track. So the two aligned pretty well for me. And I know a lot of the other guys in the series are oval guys, whereas I don't ever drive oval. So to them, it's kind of new. Whereas for me, this is just the same thing I've been running all the time.
I know I think I asked you this back at Watkins Glen, and especially here today, being by yourself, it probably made it a little bit easier. But in relation to this track, which kind of, especially in the road course section, seemed like a one groove track. You had to run one specific line. What was the difficulty level of being able to move out of the way of those faster prototypes?
They were pretty polite, so I didn't really have any troubles. Whenever I could see that, maybe someone was in the top 5, I knew that they might be a little bit more aggressive. So I might give them a little bit more extra space, especially since I didn't really have to push it. I wasn't contending for a position. But most of the time, I just stuck to my line, and they never bumped me one time. everybody just took their time and went around me as needed.
We saw a lot of, especially the Mustang drivers. Our broadcast partner, Matthew Rodriguez, was in a car tonight, and a lot of them seemed to be having issues with rear grip, especially off the corners. Did you experience any of that?
No, but I typically like a car that's really loose. I did notice that, the dampers are a little bit more firm than what I would normally run in this car. So that probably makes it a little bit more loose on exit than usual. And then plus this car in general just understeers a lot on turn-in and oversteers quite a lot on exit. It's got a lot of locking in the rear diff on power. And so you might be coasting through the corner, but once you put the power on, the rear end really likes to step out. So I could see for people who aren't used to driving it, it's really easy to do that, especially in the infield corners with the tighter turns. During high-speed sweepers, you won't get that as much.
Camera angles that we had, it was a lot easier to see the brakes on the Ford Mustang cars, and they were glowing red pretty much the entire race. Was there at any point where you could kind of feel a difference in the brakes with the way that the car handled?
No, not at all. I never noticed any difference in braking. I did the same braking all race long. Overnight, the track temp was low, so the grip was really good. So I definitely rifled off my fastest laps at night. And then once the sun came up, track got hot. The grip started going away. I don't really think it was so much of me. I mean, I overdrove the tires maybe a little bit, but the track temp went up, and the lap times definitely suffered towards the end of the race because it was so warm. So when that happened, I had to back up my braking marker a little bit because I could still brake in time for the corner, but I couldn't carry quite the same cornering speed. So I had to back up the brake markers a little bit near the end. But it was pretty good. I was really happy with the car. It handled really consistently throughout the whole race.
If Sam's got any questions, or Matt?
I was just wondering, was there any pit strategy that you felt like you were going into the race with? I know that you dominated the race, so I didn't feel like you really had to worry about a strategy. But was there one going when you start going into this race?
Well, definitely. So the first mistake I made was I thought this was a 2.4-hour race. And so I was running my calculations in Excel based on that. Someone pointed out right before the race started, no, this is a 2 hour and 40-minute race, not a 2 hour and 24-minute race. And I went, oh, I'm glad you said that. I didn't notice. And so I hopped back into Excel and ran the numbers, and I found, okay, I'm going to be really tight. I'm going to do 2 stops. But because we're starting with less fuel because there was a setup issue, I knew it was going to be tight. So I did do a little bit of fuel savings. Usually I do a flat foot upshift, but this time I was lifting on every upshift. And then there's a couple times on the front stretch where I would roll out of the throttle just before getting on the brakes to try to save that little bit extra. And it worked out perfect because I ran every tank all the way until the absolute last lap. And at the end of the race, I had 1 lap remaining in the tank. So I got pretty lucky.
That is cutting it close.
No doubt about it. Well, we're going to turn the microphone over to you and let you do some shout-outs after your win today here at the Daytona Road Course.
Thanks to Chad for putting it on. Thanks to you guys for hosting. And thanks again, as I say usually, Pete and S for making the iSpeed program. Makes it really easy to make sure I'm hitting my brake markers and to keep consistent laps for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I really wouldn't be able to do it without iSpeed keeping me on task.
All right, Daniel Resch, 2 starts, 2 wins in the Grand Elite EisenDesigns Sports Car Series. Congrats, man.
Thanks, guys.
And last but certainly not least, let's bring up the second place finisher of the GT class and your winner of that class, your champion, Max Lupfer. Max, it's Sam, Matt, and Seth up here in the Flatout Racing Network studios. You got us?
Yep, I got you loud and clear.
Well, we talked to you as a race winner last time out at Row America. Tonight we talked to you as a champion. Congratulations on that. Second place run here this evening. Was there anything that you could have done to strategize to catch the 14, or were you basically just trying to ride and preserve the championship?
Early on, the first few laps, I definitely thought I had a chance to keep up with him, but I made a couple of mistakes with my shifts that one caused me to get off track, which cost me 4 or 5 seconds, and then the other one just I locked up the rear end and had it come around on me. So after those two, 14 car kind of ran off a little bit. Daniel was a little bit too far gone, and without the draft, it was going to be hard to catch back up with him. So at that point, I just kind of focused on getting